Good evening, everybody. I'd like to officially call to order the regular City Council meeting for Farmington Hills from 7:30 p.m. on the 27th of September. We are in a different venue tonight, and tonight only. We are at the theater at the Hawk, and that's because renovations are being done on the video system in the council chambers, which will be where our next meeting is. So thank you for coming out all this way and enjoy the theater. Hopefully you'll stop by and see a play here or attend some events here and walk around the Hawk and see what we have to offer. I also want to point out that if you want to speak on an item that is on the agenda, not during public comment, but on an item that's on the agenda, there are blue slips, and Assistant City Manager Joe Valentine has those blue slips, and he will pass them out and then collect them so that we can call you up when it's time for you to speak. And I will ask you, because we have a long agenda tonight, to please keep your comments brief. I have a 3-minute, and I will also do a 3-minute on my phone for comments during agenda items. And I ask your indulgence on that, and I want to thank you in advance for your cooperation. So we will begin with, I have all these papers in front of me. We're usually on computer. So we will begin with the call of the meeting to order, which I've already done, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I believe there's a flag showing. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the roll call.
Mayor Barnett.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Boulevard.
Here.
Council members Bridges.
Here.
Knoll. Here. Massey.
Present.
Newland. Here. And Strickfaden.
Here.
Next is approval of the agenda. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move approval of the agenda with one addition, and that would be in item 8, appointments to various boards and commissions.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Massey, support by Mr. Bridges, to amend the agenda and support it as amended. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will amend that for an item number 8 for appointments to boards and commissions. Next item is the proclamation recognizing the Fire Prevention Week. And Dr. Massey, would you like to read that?
I would be honored to read that. So, a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, October 3 through 9, 2021. Learn the sounds of fire safety. Whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and the Farmington Hills Fire Department is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those who live in our city or visit our community. And whereas this year's National Fire Protection Association campaign, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, educates the public about the sounds that smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms make, and teaches people to respond immediately and exit the home as quickly as possible. And whereas the campaign addresses special considerations for the deaf and hard of hearing and provides information about bed shakers and strobe light alarms. And whereas, according to the NFPA, over 40% of home fire deaths occur in homes with no smoke alarms, and 16% occur when smoke alarms fail to operate due to missing or disconnected batteries, dead batteries, disconnected hardwired alarms, or other power issues. And whereas the fire department reminds everyone to test the batteries in smoke and carbon monoxide alarms monthly and to replace alarms that are more than 10 years old. And whereas in 2020, the NFPA reported that in the years spanning 2014 to 2018, U.S. fire departments responded to an estimated average of 353,100 home structure fires per year, and these fires caused an annual average of 2,620 civilian deaths. 11,030 civilian fire injuries, and $7.2 billion in direct property damage. Also, according to the Michigan Prevention and Michigan Fire Inspectors Society, Michigan has recorded 84 fire deaths during 72 fires to this date in 2021. And whereas Farmington Hills firefighter paramedics are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire deaths and injuries through fire prevention, education, and joined with the NFPA in reminding everyone to respond immediately when a smoke or carbon monoxide alarms sounds. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Vicki Barnett, the mayor of the city of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the city council, does hereby proclaim October 3 through 9, 2021 as Fire Prevention Week in the city of Farmington Hills, and urges all citizens to follow the 2021 Fire Prevention Week theme and learn the sounds of fire safety.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barnes, you're here.
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, I have something for you.
Please, come get it.
And to our fire chief in the back, Chief Unruh. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, distinguished members of council, city manager, assistant city manager, on behalf of the city of Farmington Hills Fire Department, I want to say thank you so much for accepting this proclamation. Now, just to speak briefly about what it means that you're doing this in support of us as the fire department. As was said earlier, the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association of America, established its goal to do Fire Prevention Week, what this proclamation stands for, in 1922, so over 120 years ago. Since that time, it hasn't missed a beat. From Sunday to Saturday, across the country, and even outside of the country, they're doing what we're doing now, accepting proclamations and pledging for fire safety. Why is that important for the city of Farmington Hills? Here in the city of Farmington Hills, we share something that a lot of cities don't share. Not only is it because of the desire to help others to stay safe from crime, violence, and fire, but we share a desire to make sure that this isn't something that's talked about tonight only. Our fire chief and deputy chief and fire marshal, they've been passionate throughout the years about fire safety. And as you know, in our city, we've been successfully able to make sure that our numbers, and compared to the United States of America, and compared to other cities, even here in Michigan, are the lowest numbers for fire. And we're proud of that. When other individuals pride themselves on fighting so many fires, we pride ourselves on not fighting those fires. And the reason being is because every fire, and I want to say this to the people here too, every fire that we get, we look at it as being a failure. Because fire prevention is something that we take very serious. We know that every time there's a fire, there's a chance that there's a loss of life, there's a chance that there's injury, and there's a chance of loss of income, and we know the whole domino effect that comes as a result of that. So our passion here is simple: to prevent fires. Now, what this proclamation does, and by your support, it allows us to continue to do that. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do. Right now, if you remember, less than a year ago, we were able to send out information to over 3,500 children. And as a result of that, one family, when they had a fire, they knew exactly what to do. They escaped and none of them died. Now, there's other cities that can't tell that story. It's because of our desire to prevent fires, and it's because of the fact that we take it serious. That's why what we do is really important. So your support of us allows us to do what I'm about to read right now. We've already installed over, inside of 39 homes, over 100 smoke alarms. Already we've done that. Already, and I'm talking this year alone, with the pandemic, we still have been able to do this. Already, we've installed many carbon monoxide alarms, over dozens of carbon monoxide alarms. Already, we've taken care of individuals who can't hear. We've installed bed shaker alarms already. So everything that Dr. Massey read to you, we've had a part in that. In addition to that, the unselfish efforts of Farmington Hills are being noted throughout the state. And I say throughout the state because individuals are looking at our city as a model to how they can make their city safer. It's because of our police chief, our fire chief, and you, members of council and city manager and assistant city manager, that we're doing this. So this Sunday, October 3rd, is going to be Fire Prevention Week, the starting of Fire Prevention Week here in Farmington Hills. We're going to ask all of you to come out. It's a citywide open house, but that theme, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, is a theme that we took pleasure in developing at NFPA. It's a theme that we think that we're going to be able to build upon by your presence. So as I accept this, I thank you for the continued years of support. I was here last year and the year before that and the year before that, and you're still supporting our efforts here in Farmington Hills. Thank you so very much, and I want to thank the individuals who came out to support our city council this evening and those individuals with the study session too. We appreciate you. Again, thank you.
Thank you so much. The open house will be at the City Hall campus, and it will be including the fire department as well as the police department. And if you have any children that want to see a fire truck or a police car up close firsthand, and not when they're in trouble, please stop by. That would be great. We'd love to see you. Next on the agenda is the presentation by the police department for their Reaccreditation award, and we're very proud of that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, City Manager Metchkin, Assistant City Manager Valentine, and all city leaders. I want to thank you for this opportunity to recognize the police department's great accomplishment in achieving reaccreditation. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, retired Livonia Police Chief, Robert Stevenson.
Evening, Madam Mayor.
Welcome.
City Council members, township, city officials, and residents from Farmington Hills. Again, my name is Robert Stevenson, and I am the retired chief from the city of Livonia. But I left there and I joined the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police 10 years ago, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of the association, also the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, to present the Certificate of Reaccreditation to the Farmington Hills Police Department. It seems like just yesterday that I was here, but it was actually 3 years ago that we were here when your police department achieved accreditation. And as part of the program, and as we promised, we weren't done then. It was an ongoing process, and we are now back here today. When we were first here 4 years ago, your department was a leader in the state, and it is still a leader in the state. You are now the fourth department to achieve the Certificate of Reaccreditation, which is very difficult to achieve, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and many other departments have not been able to achieve that. It's no secret that over the last few years, it's been a difficult time for law enforcement across this country and in some cities here within the state of Michigan. However, a lot of what was called for in the police reform measures, your department has already achieved. And your department didn't achieve it when it was called that they should achieve it. Your department had achieved it many years ago. So you should be very proud of your department for being proactive and being ahead of the curve and doing the things that are required, we believe, for all professional police agencies around the state to do. So we now currently have 40 police departments that are accredited or reaccredited, and that's out of the some 600 police departments in the state of Michigan. Wow. So as you can see, you are in a rarefied company around the state. So we just heard what an excellent fire department you have, and I'm here to say you also have an excellent police department. It's very difficult to achieve this award. We don't give them out. They're awarded because you earned them. And I'm going to introduce Neil Rosso, who is our director of the accreditation program, to walk you through just a little bit about what was done to earn the certificate of reaccreditation.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Neil?
Thanks, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here still.
We have paramedics in the back, just in case anything happened.
Can't leave them alone for a second. Like you said, my name is Neil Rosso. I'm actually the Director of Professional Development for the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police and the Program Director for Law Enforcement Accreditation. So I'm here to represent both the MACP and the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. I know you're all somewhat familiar with accreditation because hopefully your kids go to an accredited school, and hopefully you went to an accredited college, and hopefully if you're hurt, you get treated in an accredited hospital. So there's some similarities. Basically, the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission created 108 standards that are state and national best practices. When I say there's 108 standards, I don't mean to minimize what's contained in those standards, because there's probably over 420, 425 tasks that they have to complete. They had to take the written directives when we were here the first time. They had to weave them through those standards. Assessors came back in 2018 and gave them the original accreditation. Now, I certainly don't want to imply that the original accreditation is easy, because it is not, but the reaccreditation is much, much more difficult. The original accreditation is kind of a promise made, where the reaccreditation is a promise kept. So it's a privilege to come here. There's a lot of work that went into it. I wish I could really express how much work your agency did. Bob and I have talked a lot about our careers, and we got to do a lot of pretty important things, but there's really nothing more rewarding than to come into a community and tell them that the police department that protects them and their family is truly professional, and you should be very proud of them. So with that, to award the accreditation plaque is Chief Ron Wiles, the president of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Ron Wiles. I'm the Chief of Police at Grambling Township Police Department, which is up in Genesee County, and current president of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. I can tell you firsthand the commitment it takes, the professionalism it takes, and the support it takes from the community and a council like this to become accredited. So thank you for your commitment to our profession and your law enforcement agency here in Farmington Hills. Chief? To all who see the certificate, know that the Farmington Hills Police Department, having voluntarily complied with the standards established by the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, deemed essential for the delivery of professional police services and the protection of their community, is hereby awarded the Certificate of Accreditation, effective for the term of 3 years. Chief, congratulations to you and your team. Well done.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Do you have your low light sensor on that? Okay, good. Chief King.
Thank you. I'll make my comments brief. I am extremely proud that our department has successfully completed the reaccreditation process with the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. This recognition remains a source of great pride for our department. It's a testament to the hard work and dedication and professionalism of the Farmington Hills Police Department and our employees. I do want to make a couple of thank yous real quick. I want to thank Executive Director Stevenson, Director Rosso, Chief Wiles from the Grand Blanc Police Department, the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, the external assessors that were in our building for a couple days, and the hearing board that we attended in Mount Pleasant last week. Lastly, I feel that specific recognition is in order for our accreditation manager and our team. If Assistant Chief John Pickett, our accreditation manager, Captain Rich Blenda, who was unable to be here for due to a family function, and Lieutenant Michael Connolly, I believe that these individuals stepped up, met this challenge, and most importantly, they made a process department-wide. It wasn't just those 3 members that led this endeavor. They made it part of every section, unit, bureau of our department, and is really now a ground-up effort that makes us the exceptional police department that we are, and made it possible for us to achieve reaccreditation status. I thank the council, I thank the city leadership for their continued support, and thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We are blessed with great public safety leaders in this community, and I want to thank you all and congratulations on your reaccreditation. I know it's a cumbersome opportunity and rigorous program that you have to go through in order to get reaccredited as well as accredited in the first place. So thank you. Next item is correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence to report that maybe none of us all have received? I just have received a lot of emails regarding power outages, and I'm sure you have too, and we are currently continuing our robust, unpleasant discussions with DTE, and we are working hard to make sure that they put us on the list for extra care and make sure that they live up to their promises. So that's all I'll say for now, and we'll move on to consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Boulevard, gave me a chance to call your name again.
The consent agenda for this evening is September 27th. Number 8, recommended approval award of proposal for a 100 mid-mount aerial platform fire truck to Emergency Vehicles Plus, representing Rosenbauer America in the amount of $984,378, and that's CMR 9-21-90. Number 9, recommended approval of purchase of kitchen equipment for the Senior Nutrition Center with Douglas Equipment in the amount of $20,591.57, and with Pueblo Hotel Supply in the corrected amount of $8,116.25, and that's CMR 9-21-91. Number 10, recommended approval of extension of bid award for concrete repair and replacement at the Hawk Pickleball Courts to Merlot Construction in the amount of $18,935. That's CMR 9-21-92. Number 11 is recommended approval of purchase of hot and cold serving stations for the senior nutritional programs to Commercial Kitchen Equipment and Supplies Company in the amount of $17,177.50, and that's CMR 9-21-93. Number 12, recommended approval of the City Council study session meeting minutes of September 13, 2021, and 13, which is the recommended approval of the City Council regular session meeting minutes of September 13, 2021.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion? So moved. It's been moved by Councilmember Knoll to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Support.
Dr. Massey has seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Strickfaden,
Yes.
Newland,
Yes.
Massey,
Yes.
Knoll,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Boulevard,
Yes.
and Mayor Barnett.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we come to public questions and comments. Limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes on any item that is not before City Council on this agenda tonight. If you would like to come forward, we have a lectern right up there, and just give us your name and your street. You don't have to give us your full address. Hello, County Commissioner.
Hello, everybody. Marcia Gershenson, and I actually live in Bloomfield Township. But I'm very proud to represent portions of Farmington Hills, and I had the distinct pleasure of working with your police and fire during this whole COVID crisis and distributing the CARES money that was from the federal government, and it was a complete pleasure working with them, a very impressive group. Very proud of these accomplishments. One of the other priorities that emerged during COVID was the need to increase mental health services in our county. So we just received half of our allotted ARPA money, which is the federal money for COVID-related expenses in the community, and we have allocated $14 million of that to mental health service agencies. I'm just going to read a list of the qualifications. There are 3. There are operational grants that will be from $50,000 to $99,999, and that's to maintain or enhance mental health or behavioral health issues. The second are expansion grants, and they are from $100,000 to $249,000, and those are to expand or implement new mental health or behavioral health issues. And then the third are community grants, and these are from $250,000 to $500,000, and they will be awarded to nonprofits that have an annual operating budget of at least $4 million, and those agencies that need to maintain or expand mental health or behavioral health. Now, this has been posted on our oakgov.com website. Applications are due October 1, and awards will be distributed October 25th. So although I'm announcing it to you the week that they're due, it has been posted, but I just want to be sure that we get the word out, because this is a great opportunity, and the Commission is looking to make transformational changes with this money, and we recognize that mental health services are a priority for our community. I also wanted to say thanks to your council and Mayor Barnett and your relationship with DTE. They are hosting a community open house from 5 to 7:30, September 28th, at the Heritage Park North Pavilion in Farmington Hills. So it's an opportunity for residents to get out there and talk about what's been going on. And then I also wanted to acknowledge Gary Mekjian and Joe Valentine for putting together a regional effort to deal with the deer issue in our county. I am hoping to work with them on coming up with some new innovative ideas, but I really wanted to commend them for taking leadership, because this will be a regional, hopefully it'll be a regional effort, and Farmington Hills is at the lead of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to point out that the listening session tomorrow night for DTE at Heritage Park will be in the North Pavilion, but it will be a one-on-one with residents and DTE. So it's not a formal hearing, but if you have problems, you can sit down with DTE. They will have representatives there. You'll give them your address, and they will tell you what they are doing to try to repair your problem for the long run, not just chewing gum and whatever else they're putting together.
Right, but a lot of that happened because of your efforts during one of the last outages that we had. But they have really committed to us interacting with the communities and hearing from representatives, from residents, because I get emails too.
I'm sure you do. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a very frustrating time for all of our residents going through this. Anybody else want to come forward for public questions and comments? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Zach Learman. I am a cannabis attorney on behalf of a law firm called Policella PLLC. I am just here to introduce myself and also thank you for allowing me to speak in your community. I'm not here to give a long presentation. I'm just trying to get the city council to be familiar with my face, the name of our firm. We'll be here again. I'd like to let you know I'm an advocate of recreational and medical marijuana use and licensure in this state. I'm here to answer any questions, obviously not here, but I'll pass my card around. In the meantime, I would just ask that you keep an open mind regarding marijuana licensure in this community. Oakland County was, I think in the 2018 election, Oakland County itself was about 60%, 60% of the people, 58 to 60% of the people in Oakland County voted in favor of the of MRTA, the Michigan Regulation Taxation of Marijuana Act. That's the Adult Use Act. I just looked at the numbers for this community. It's a bit higher than that even. I just ask for the sake of your constituents to be open-minded regarding future presentations we may provide to you. And I'll provide my card to the city manager, the deputy clerk, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I also want to point out that there is a package of 4 bills, I believe, that are currently in the House and the Senate in Lansing that will be addressing this issue too, and I don't know where those are going, but I know they're coming up rapidly for a vote.
Okay.
So
Thank
keep
you.
your eyes out for those.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay, that brings us to council members' comments and announcements. Does anybody have anything? Yes, Mr. Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. Just want to bring council's attention to an issue that I've talked about to the mayor as well as to the city manager. I think some of you as well. Yesterday in Detroit Free Press, there was a lead article in regards to a pedestrian being almost ran over in his neighborhood. And I've raised these concerns with our city manager as well as our mayor. Recently, we had a conversation about my concern about traffic control in neighborhoods. And I think it's, Mayor, I'd like to recommend a study session to look at strategies and other type of deterrent strategies that we can do in order to mitigate and slow down traffic within neighborhoods, particularly in neighborhoods where there's a long street, where drivers have an opportunity to rev up their speed. And I've noticed that in my neighborhood, in Farmington Hills, we don't have many sidewalks in our neighborhoods. And when you have people walking in the street, elderly people as well as today I saw a couple walking their family member. He was in a wheelchair. And I'm just thinking about the concern about traffic and speed within the neighborhoods. And that article in the Free Press helped crystallize this issue for me, that I fear that we have a similar issue in our community where we have an incident like that. So, Mayor, I'm recommending a study session on that particular issue.
Okay, so we will look forward to a study session with the police department and the Safety E3 group.
Yep, that's what bring in. That's
Okay.
Thank you.
And that will be publicized. We've had several comments. It's normally neighborhood people who are driving too fast in their own neighborhood, and we can step up enforcement. And there are other things that we can do when there are problems, and we will review those again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate that. The other thing I want to talk about is zoning enforcement. I've had a conversation with the city manager about this as well, and the mayor, regarding the fact that I think that we need to step up some zoning enforcement in our community, particularly among commercial establishments and residential as well. But I've noticed that there's been trash receptacles overflowing, potholes in parking lots, landscape issues, as well as commercial signs that are deteriorating. We passed an ordinance on the city council to deal with signage in commercial buildings. And I've noticed some commercial signs that are in disrepair. And so, zoning enforcement is very critical for any community. It basically is the presentation of the community. If your zoning is not being enforced in a way that I think that we need to do a better job with, and the fact that this is very important to our community. So I would like to talk to the city manager about it. He's aware of the fact that we need to be more proactive in our zoning enforcement, and I'm looking for continual attention to that particular issue regarding that issue there.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Those are my comments.
Anyone else on council? Anybody down there? Way down there? Nope. Okay. It's hard to see because we're kind of in a reverse arc here. Next is city manager update.
Thank you, Mayor.
couple of things that I wanted to mention have already been touched upon this evening, so just wanted to remind everybody that our city open house is this Sunday on October 3rd from noon to 3 p.m. We have a variety of police cars, public works trucks, fire engines, all kinds of stuff for folks to come and see. And then again, if you haven't heard it, this is the third time. I've been told you got to say it 3 times so people know. There is the DTE open house tomorrow, starting at 5 o'clock from 5 to 7:30 at Heritage Park in the North Pavilion. There will also be another opportunity to speak with representatives from DTE on September 29th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. at the Riley Park Pavilion in downtown Farmington. Thank you.
Okay. We'll now come to item number 4, which is a public hearing. I have 2 slips in front of me, so we will call those people up after we hear a presentation from the revised cluster site and open space plan for 60-10-2020 located at 38500 9 Mile Road, dated August 24th, 2021. Mr. Gardner.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the item before you is a revised cluster site plan that originally was before council at your May 24th, 2021 meeting. This cluster site plan is a residential neighborhood. The proponent is Pulte Homes of Michigan, and the property is the old Piedmontese Social Club. I don't know if you remember that property has been vacant for some time now with the Piedmontese Social Club closing down their club and putting the property up for sale. It's located at 38500 9 Mile Road, which is approximately adjacent to Halstead Road. The district is RA2, one family residential district, and the Planning Commission, they reviewed a similar plan and recommended approval by a 6-2 vote on February 18, 2021. The proponent, when it went before the city council, they asked for approval, and the city council made a motion to approve, which failed. And there were some issues that council had brought forth as a part of that denial of the plan. The proponent has submitted a revised plan and is asking for council consideration on the revised plan. Following my remarks here, the proponent should submit or propose, show council what their revisions were to the plan that was originally proposed. Then your planning consultant, Mr. Royal, will give a land use review of that revised plan. This is a public hearing, so the council should take public comment after those presentations prior to your deliberation on the matter. So with that, the proponent should come forth and explain the revisions that they have proposed for their plan.
Good evening. I'm Mike Knowles with the Umlor Group, 49287 West Road, Wixom, representing Pulte Homes of Michigan. Joe Score, the Vice President of Land Acquisitions for Pulte Homes, is also with me here tonight. We're grateful for your time tonight to consider Chasewood Villa's merits to provide attractive, age-targeted, single-story ranch housing opportunities for empty nesters in the city of Farmington Hills. The 10-acre property is located on 9 Mile Road, adjacent to the Polo Field Apartments, the Industrial Park to the north, and Heritage Village, a 23-unit RA2 development to the east. The property is zoned RA2 single family. We propose to develop the property in conformance with zoning requirements and relying on the City of Farmington Hills cluster option. The cluster ordinance is written to provide an orderly transition of density from high-density properties to low-density properties. The Chasewood development has come a long way over the past year. As a reminder regarding some of the previous changes, and it's appropriate tonight that your fire chief was here talking about fire prevention, all of these units include fire suppression systems. This is one of the reasons that the fire department has recommended approval of this plan. We also have a recommendation from engineering for approval. We eliminated the mechanical treatment and added two-stage storage stormwater basin at the low point of the property, which we discussed at great length last time. The density started at the upper end of the density permitted under the cluster ordinance, which you can see sort of a progression over time of the different plans that you've seen or your planning commission or staff have seen. On February 18th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended the third from the top, the 28-unit version of this plan. April 26th, we came and saw the City Council, and you considered the plan and requested additional changes at that time. We made revisions and returned to the Council on May 24th. At that time, City Council provided additional direction, and we are now back with those additional changes. The Chasewood Villas Cluster Site Plan returns to you with a reduced unit count of 25 units, a 17% reduction from our initial submittal. As requested, the cul-de-sac bulb has been flipped to decrease the density along the Heritage Village property line. The reduction in density and configuration change both improved curb appeal by enlarging the open space where it was most needed. The landscape screening has been further enhanced by staggering the trees as requested by the adjacent neighbors. The plan also improves open space at the cul-de-sac. The open space open space access at the cul-de-sac. This was one of the issues at the Planning Commission where it was tough to get into that open space, and now that access is greatly improved. The open space buffers have been incorporated as common elements to be maintained in perpetuity by the Chasewood Homeowners Association. Chasewood Villas master deed and bylaws create a responsibility for the association to continue the maintenance after the HOA is turned over. The cost of the maintenance is funded by the HOA dues and includes enforcement mechanisms. The 35-foot rear yard setback that you see here complies with RA2 zoning and is the same as Heritage Village. The combined side yard setback for each unit along the east property line is 20 feet. This is the same as Heritage Village and complies with RA2 requirements. The cluster ordinance requires one of the following: 20-foot combined side setbacks, which we have, or provide a landscape buffer, which we have. We incorporated both. Now, we've added a third buffer enhancement. Pulte is proposing to install a 6-foot privacy fence along certain property lines in accordance with neighbor requests. The existing security fence around the property with 2 rows of barbed wire around the top will be removed. The low-maintenance 6-foot vinyl fence will offer additional privacy and security. There is no change to the landscaping proposed because of the fence addition. There is no change to the side setbacks because of the fence addition. The revised plan was shared with interested neighbors. Several have endorsed the plan. Benningers, who have been outspoken over the process, requested the fence and have now indicated in correspondence to you that they support the project. The Tree Huggers Daycare to the west also requested a fence. Our original plan had a 4-foot chain link fence. We've now replaced that with a 6-foot privacy fence along their entire property line. Their concern was primarily the safety of the children in their care. The fence will limit potential points of contact between workers, residents, and their children. Heritage Village residents adjacent to our property indicated opposition to or indifference to a fence along their property line. As a result, Pulte is not proposing a fence along that property line. We offered it, And they said, no, thank you. Chasewood Villas offers sustainable development benefits while reducing blight. Councilman Bridges just pointed out that there's some blight issues around some of the commercial buildings. They need to clean up some landscaping, some potholes, some signs that are starting to weather. The existing swim club, which you can see here, photos of it, the existing swim club building, pool, parking lot, barbed wire fence, and all other existing elements will be demolished in their entirety. You can see in the upper right corner of the aerial where there's arrows pointing over towards Heritage Village, the stormwater improvements will eliminate the drainage that is draining onto the neighbor's property, which will have a positive impact on those neighbors. Shuttered or abandoned commercial buildings do not present a neat and orderly appearance. Broken windows, peeling paint, rusted fences, obsolete play equipment is an attractive nuisance and a hazard in the community. Sustainable development practices encourage redevelopment of brownfield sites over the new development at greenfield sites. Chasewood Villas will provide housing opportunities for an underserved market. The demand for empty nester housing in Farmington Hills is high, but the supply is low. Seniors are an increasing population. By providing quality housing opportunities designed with seniors in mind, the city of Farmington Hills and its current residents benefit in many ways, including less intense use of streets, utilities, and police services. The tax revenue collected benefits area schools without adding a great student burden. Senior residents deploy a high level of discretionary spending locally, typically during off-peak hours, which bolsters area businesses. Senior citizens are typically civic-minded residents, known to enrich their host communities through volunteerism. Their attention to detail can be reflected in increased property values. I know this firsthand. You can see in the map on the upper lower hand corner there, my folks lived for 35 years in Green Hill Woods, and when my mom had her stroke, there was no place for them to go. They couldn't have a 4-bedroom, 2-story colonial anymore. Mom couldn't do the stairs, so they ended up moving over to Novi because there wasn't a first floor ranch opportunity like this that would have catered to their needs. They still, every Saturday at 4 o'clock, go to Our Lady of Sorrows. They still go over to Peterlin's every Friday night, but they live over in Novi. This is a need in Farmington Hills. Next, green initiatives and sustainability. On a previous slide, I mentioned the important sustainability aspects of redevelopment. Additional green initiatives included in these new homes include energy-saving appliances, LED and compact fluorescent lights, radiant barrier roof decking, low-E windows, high-efficiency HVAC systems, and programmable thermostats. Additional green options will be offered, including electric vehicle garage prep, solar-ready roofs, and electric tankless water heaters. Regarding cluster qualification, you can see I've listed all the recommendations for approval across the top. Engineering, fire, planning, we met their conditions, and Planning Commission recommended for approval. The City of Farmington Hills qualification criteria requires certain physical characteristics to be present to qualify for the cluster development option, to be able to develop up to 31 units on this property. At the November 19th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the city confirmed the property qualifies to the letter of your own cluster ordinance. Since that time, we've secured the recommendations that I just mentioned. We now have made additional changes recommended by this council and several of the neighbors. The plan now incorporates reduced density, reconfigured and enlarged open spaces, public roads, added privacy fence where it was desired by the neighbors. We thank you for your continued cooperation and hearing us out tonight. We are available to answer any questions that you might have or to discuss the plan further. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Does anyone on council have any questions? Nope. Mr. Arroyo? Oh, Michael, did you have a question, Mr. Bridges? Dr. Massey?
I did.
Yes.
Mr. Knowles, just for clarification, and I think you answered this in your comments, we have some correspondence that was in our materials that regarding the fence that's proposed, and some neighbors obviously wanted that, and some did not. So the ones that did not, from your comment, those folks would not have a fence put up, correct?
That is correct, Dr. Massey, and I confirmed both with Mr. Trombley, who I'm sure you'll hear from tonight. He took a poll along those property owners that are adjacent on the property line, came up with the same answers as Ms. Scioli, and nobody in Heritage Village along that property line wanted a fence. Mr. Adams said he could either take it or leave it. If he took it, he didn't want it to be white, he wanted it to be brown. But the rest of the neighbors all said, no, we adamantly don't. I exchanged emails with Ms. Scioli, probably 10 emails back and forth to talk about what would you like, where would you like it, and to work things out with those adjacent neighbors. So to answer your question the long way, Doctor, yes, the fence is not where the neighbors don't want it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arroyo?
Good evening. I'll try to be fairly brief with our report. I know you've heard a lot about this. We've already presented a lot of the information regarding the one family cluster option and what the specific standards are, but I do want to hit a couple of highlights. In terms of open space, which is an important component of this project, the applicant now has 4.37 acres, which represents 43.7% of the site. When we look at cluster standards that are listed in item 6 on page 5, there are a number of items that deal with garage setbacks, what happens when you face a major or secondary thoroughfare. All of those standards are met. The minimum open space requirement is 15%. They are providing 43.7%. So there's been a substantial increase since you originally saw this project as it evolves and has some of the units have been removed. In terms of the cul-de-sac itself, we've talked about the cul-de-sac standards and the fact that the applicant is mitigating any impacts related to cul-de-sac by the suppression system, the fire suppression system that will be installed in the individual units. And that satisfies the fire department, and we believe that they have commented and recommended on that. The detention basin fencing has been revised, as the applicant indicated, now is proposed along that western edge next to the daycare center. One of the most important things that we believe that applies to this type of single-family development, this cluster option, is that transition to single-family residential. And there are a number of options that are presented in your ordinance, and they have modified what they presented based on your feedback. That double row now, basically that alternating staggered row of evergreen trees, white pines, firs, and spruces is going to have a substantial impact on how this transitions to the single family development to the east. In addition, as the applicant has indicated, the side setbacks are going to be the exact same as the underlying RA2 zoning for those units that face the eastern portion, the existing subdivision to the east. So you've got the exact same side setbacks, the exact same rear setbacks. In addition to that, you have that transitional screening with the evergreen trees. So that's the transition that they're asking for your approval and consideration of as part of satisfying the ordinance requirements. Also, in terms of trees, there are some trees that are being removed. In addition, there are trees that are required, including street trees. All of those requirements have been met. They are installing all the proposed number of trees. You'll see them along the street, and then you'll see them all around the edges as they buffer this site to adjacent uses. As we know, some of the adjacent uses are industrial, some of them are multiple families, some of them are child care related. So you're going to find a variety of different screening types as you move around the site. And to summarize, there are specific deviations from the RA2 standards that are part of a cluster option. They're asking for your consideration of those. Obviously, the minimum lot size. In this case, there isn't what we would call a traditional lot. They don't have boundaries. There's a condominium unit, which is the inside that structure itself. But the rest of it is a general common element, which has common maintenance and common ownership. So they are not meeting the specific minimum lot size. However, they do have 17,424 square feet of total area per unit when you take the full 10-acre property into consideration. When you look at the fact that the average of 16,500 square feet is what is envisioned for the RA2, and the fact that if you take the 17,424 per square feet per unit, it's very comparable to that average size. Also, minimum side setbacks, as I mentioned, they are meeting that on the east side, but they are asking for the relief that's allowed through the one-family clustering on the west side, where the setbacks will be 15 feet, except for every fourth unit where it will be 20 feet, which is what your ordinance requires. So they're meeting that ordinance requirement. And then finally, the minimum front setback in the RA2 district is 35 feet. The plan proposes a minimum front setback of 25 feet to each unit. Once again, that's consistent with the cluster option and something that you can grant as part of the one-family clustering. So that summarizes our report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Arroyo? Mr. Bridges?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Arroyo, for your presentation. Regarding the density issue, what is the density requirement for this particular project?
The density that is required, the underlying density in the RA2 district is 2.1 dwelling units per acre.
2.1.
Right, but through the cluster option, you can qualify for up to 3.1 dwelling units per acre. This particular proposal is coming in at 2.5.
Right in the middle there.
It's kind of right about in the middle of that.
And your characterization, reading of what council had talked about prior to the proponent responses in regards to what council questions were, and when we deliberated on this before, has the proponent moved substantively toward council's recommendation?
I believe they have.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the public. I will, we have two people that would like to speak. I'm going to first open the public hearing and invite them up, and then we will open it up in case anybody else wants to come up. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We have a long agenda tonight, and I would love to hear your comments on this. Public hearing is now open, and Mr. Campbell.
Hello, I'm Jim Campbell. I live at 38336 Atlanta Court, and I back up right, I'm lot number 11. Well, they took it off. But I moved there in 1988, been there 33 years. Piemontese was a great neighbor. We knew something was going to happen someday. But basically what we're complaining about in our association here is the density. The last time we had this meeting, it was a Zoom. They proposed 26 homes. Here it is 5 months later, we're down to 25. What's the big deal? One house. It's still way too tight on 10 acres. And the other comment that we've been kicking around for the last year or so, it just doesn't look like a Farmington Hills development. It's just too many cluster homes on 10 acres. Nobody likes it. That's my 3 minutes.
That's your 1 minute, 12 seconds. Thank you.
Any questions? I guess not.
Nope.
I'll turn it over to Todd, who is our president.
Okay, next is Todd Trumbley.
Thank you very much, Mayor Barnett. Hi, Council. You know, I've introduced myself. I live on Lana Drive. I'm the president of the Heritage Village Owners Association. And we're here to talk about the density, like my neighbor Jim said. We don't have any objection to the type of homes. We've never objected to any of the amenities that come with them. We're not here to talk about that. We recognize there's a need. We know the property at Piedmontese needs to be developed. I will say it hasn't been vacant for nearly as long as people think. It's only been the beginning of 2020 is when it was announced that they were departing. So and I think like I said, we've been talking about this project for over a year. So it really hasn't been that long. They were even having an event there last week inside. It's not like the property is falling apart, okay? So we just want to keep that in mind. But 25 homes, it's not so much, the density 2.5, it's kind of become a useless metric because all of the homes are in the heart of the subdivision, and the density has come down, but it's always been at homes removed at the front and the back end of the street. And, it's no longer on the display, but the heart of the subdivision has not changed. And we have several neighbors with 2 and 3 homes behind them that they haven't seen any benefit from the density reductions. So we're looking to help those people out. 2.5, like I said, has become a little bit useless because of the fact that we have 44% open space now when the requirement on a cluster is only 15%. It's almost a bad thing in a way. It's become a bad thing, right? Because all the homes are congregated in one small area. So we were looking to distribute those homes a little bit more across the property, not so much all in one area. I shared some comments with you earlier via email as well. I think there's some improvements that can be made on the bigger picture with the front end of the street in terms of an entryway and making that a little bit nicer, with a divided median. I also think this street is set up, Councilman Bridges, for a speeder's dream because it's a straight shot and it's, there's going to be a lot of traffic to and from the beginning and end of that street. With that, we just ask you again, we've compromised along the way. We're looking to help out our neighbors that are on bordering the subdivision. If we could remove one home, I think that would go a long way toward appeasing people. There were some benefits recently, but quite honestly, like my neighbor had said, we flipped the cul-de-sac, we took out one home at the front, and we added a couple feet of stagger to the trees. We didn't add any new trees. Nothing ultimately has changed. We voted 5-2 against it in May, and quite honestly, it doesn't feel like much has changed to suddenly feel like this is a great idea for the city of Farmington Hills. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Nope. I'll officially close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Motion, comments, questions? Mr. Strickfaden and then Councilmember Knoll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of questions for the proponent, if he wouldn't mind coming up.
Yes, sir.
I know the last time that you were in front of council, I talked to you about turning 8 of the units on the east side into duet units, which would then make it appear as though there were only 4 units and would make it appear as though it was less dense. And I know that you haven't done that here. With the density issue, it seems to me that as an option, number 1, do nothing, number 2, extend the cul-de-sac to the north so that you could spread out the 9 houses or lots that are currently on the east side is a third option. Are any of those options you'd be willing to consider?
So we have considered those, sir. So we looked at the duplex. It was brought up at Planning Commission. It was brought up at City Council. And the problem with doing duplexes there is that one of the major objections to this plan for the last year has been price point. You're going to drive the price of our homes down by building cheaper homes in this neighborhood. When you introduce a duplex, you instantly take $50,000 off of the price point. We did a study of sales. We had 17 sales in the last 2 years right in that area, and they were all ranging in the $350 to $370 range for our neighbors. And we have proposed a price point of $375 to $425. There'll probably be some that option up to $450, and have demonstrated to the objectors that we are actually building a unit that's going to be more expensive than their homes and raise the price point. So the first problem is now all of a sudden we've got that other objection. The second problem is that when you have a small development, 25 units, that's 1 year of inventory for a Pulte Homes development. They just opened a similar site like this. They sold 10 in the first weekend. 25 is a modest pace for any standard development. If you break it into 2 different product lines, you now only have half a year's inventory of each product line. You barely get started and you're shutting it down. It just doesn't make any financial sense to have a multi-product development of that nature. And then to your last point, to extend the cul-de-sac further north, we are already stretched to the limits of the maximum cul-de-sac length. We did 10 different plans that we met with the planning, staff planning, engineering, fire, to talk about this cul-de-sac length. It was just about 1.5 years ago, this council rejected a plan for cul-de-sac length being too long. And so we tried to make that cul-de-sac 600 feet from the stub street, tried to minimize the length of that cul-de-sac, and introduced the fire suppression that was endorsed by your fire department to keep that as short as possible. And now, again, I think because this process is so long, we sometimes forget about some of the other hurdles that we overcame in the past to arrive at this point. Just like, well, we've given up 1 more unit. Well, yes, but we started at 30, and then we did a 29 plan and a 28 plan, and we skipped 27. We went right to 26 and 25. And so now here we are at 25. And the question is, and I think Mr. Trombley makes a good point, as does it become meaningless what the number is? So you've heard the range from your planning consultant that says it's somewhere between 21 units and 31 units. We qualified for both criteria that would qualify us for up to 31 units. What is the number? What is the number? Every time we solve one problem, like we would like a fence, we'd like additional screening, flip the cul-de-sac, add the passing lane, another one comes up. Maybe 1 less unit. Which one less? From the middle of the block? From the beginning? From the end? And so as this thing continues to morph and change over time, and we keep making incremental changes, feeling like we are satisfying the objections, there's always more. And so my question to you is, the cluster ordinance, it qualifies. Narrow piece of property. The only thing we're really asking for different is the front yard setback. Instead of 35 feet, it's 25 feet. We've moved our homes closer to the street and kept the same rear yards, kept the same side separations on the north side, on the east side where it's adjacent to the big homes, and smaller on the west side where it's adjacent to the 280 apartment units. So we're following the structure of that ordinance to the letter, and we're trying to find a happy medium. We've met with the residents over and over and over again. We did look at that. We did not discount that suggestion about duplexes. We looked at it. We can't hit the price point to satisfy the objections. We can't get the length any longer, and the development becomes such a small development to have 2 different products in a 25-unit deal, or 24 or 26. It's kind of irrelevant that it's such a small project. It's a 1 product inventory type of project. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I do understand that if you took 1 or even 2 of these units out and drove a car down after it was done, I don't think very many people could tell the difference between one or the other. I get that. From a site plan point of view, or the way that it's on my computer screen, I can certainly understand why neighbors would be concerned about the density, but I also understand that there's, even in a duet or duplex, when you take those and combine them together, which I did at home, I cut them out and I moved them together and I looked at them and it still kind of looks like the same density because you still have a certain size home that's going on these lots. So I do understand and appreciate it. Have you considered the split entryway?
So we originally had a boulevard in one of our very first iterations. That went away because we needed room to do the two-stage storage basin and have an entry feature. The boulevard cross-section doesn't work great in there because now you start taking up, instead of a 60-foot road right-of-way, a boulevard requires a 100-foot road right-of-way. So you need 40 more feet. So where do you get it from? You got to take it out of the open space to the east, open space to the west, and what are you getting for it? It's going to end as soon as you get to the lots. So you're having a boulevard that's, 100 feet long when you can do the same landscaping on either side. You just double your pavement. It's a public road. You double your pavement for what? You haven't really gained anything there. What we tried to do is to have open space in that front because everybody said, we want you to be able, as you drive down 9 Mile Road, to have it look good. We don't want to have houses right on top of 9 Mile Road. And that's what you've got. You've got a nice detention basin, a nice open space with landscaping area in there. And one of the comments that has continued to reoccur is that this doesn't look like Farmington Hills. Well, what part doesn't look like Farmington Hills? The two-story family home that I grew up in, yeah, it's not that. It's different than that. It's targeted at a different consumer. It's an attractive house, a one-story ranch for seniors. And that's why it doesn't look like a lot of other areas in Farmington Hills because there's just not that inventory out there. So yeah, it does look a little different. It looks nice. They have 23 units in Heritage Village and there's 25 units proposed in this neighborhood. I mean, we're not talking about thousands of units here. We're willing to change, to be flexible. We've shown that. We started at 30 and we're down to 25. At the direction, we got a recommendation for approval at Planning Commission. At your direction, we moved down, we made the changes that you asked for. And we would absolutely and respectfully request your support of this project. It's gonna be a great project for the city.
I do have one last question, and that is the green space to the north and north-northeast. Have you given any consideration to putting any sort of benches, barbecue pits, fire pits, anything to make it a community kind of an area?
100%. We would be happy to put benches, a community sitting area, bird houses, to make it more welcoming. One of the things we were trying to do was to make it more accessible, right? So we talked about that over the course of Planning Commission and City Council, and that was one of the reasons when we lost units. We lost them in the front and we lost them in the back. You heard that today about it. There was never any loss in the middle. You can't lose it in the middle. It doesn't do anything if you just take out 40 feet in the middle. So that we amass these spaces. Yeah, add elements, add park elements to there, no problem. I don't even have to turn around and look at Joe's score to commit to that 100% right now. We'd be happy to add more to the park if that's what's lacking in the plan. We've tried to respond to all the direction, and this is something I can give, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Knoll?
Oh, you might as well just stay up there.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, hello again.
Hi.
I guess nice to see you in person. I think we've been on Zoom.
Thank you. We have been on Zoom.
It's a lot easier in person.
It's nice to be here. I was going to wear my Farmington High School letter sweater since we're in the Farmington Harrison building, but maybe not appropriate.
My kids were Hawks.
I'm a Falcon.
Well, so first of all, yeah, I mean, I think I've always said the homes are nice. I think it's great to have homes for seniors. I like the amenities in them, and they look like quality homes. I was a proponent of switching the cul-de-sac. It doesn't solve all of the density problems for the residents, but at least I think it does help for lots 6 and 7, and somewhat 8, as they only now have 1 in their backyard. So I do think it helps for some of them. I know it's still pretty tough for 9 and 10. They have the most. And You know, I still have a bit of an issue with the density. I'm going to tell you that right now. But at the same time, I do hear you. I do appreciate you've been willing to compromise. I do think it's better. Thank you for your answer on the Boulevard, and how that's going to take up more space and more concrete. Do you have a rendering of what the entranceway would look like at all? Because again, as you said yourself, the residents are concerned that they kind of maintain that look on 9 Mile. There's a lot of tree canopy on 9 Mile. You know, you turn into the other subs and you do have that look and feel of larger homes, and obviously that's a concern. These homes won't be that size. I understand that. But the entranceway, I know you're putting some trees there, but if, you know, maybe with the landscaping, if you can't do the Boulevard, I don't know if you're going to have signage there. If you can landscape the sign, maybe the signage I would hope would be very high quality, kind of, you know, nice materials to keep with the amenities and the high construction materials that you're going to be using. I think that would help. If you can't do the Boulevard, I think that would probably at least help with the look of turning in there. You think you're going into, you know, kind of an exclusive community. I don't know if you have a rendering, but could you talk about like the signage or landscaping there? And then the other thing I just want to comment on is we just need to be very sure. I know you mentioned white pines and spruce. Let's just be sure that the plantings that you use are deer resistant. We do have a problem with deer eating everything, especially arborvitaes. But I'm sure that's minor. We can work with you on making sure they're deer resistant plantings. I mean, nothing's totally deer resistant, but as much as possible. We want to make sure that those plants live, the trees live, to provide that screenage.
For sure, and I'm happy to try to address some of those things. We did have a rendering of the entrance that was on the landscape plan. We were asked to take it off because Farmington Hills requires it to be on a sign application, a sign permit application. It's not approved as part of the site plan, so we had it on and took it off. We have 250 trees that are planted on the site. You can see from one of my slides, I could pull it up again, where I actually went through and highlighted each one of those trees because I wanted to show you how many trees that we're planting on this site. The beautiful part about this site is that you get the best of both worlds. So on the east side of the road, there's a landscape berm. There's no constraints. There used to be 5 units between 9 Mile and the stub street. Now there's 2. So what happened to the rest of that area? There's no constraints on berming and shaping and giving that some really great, you know, landscape massing with the plantings that we have prescribed. Ton of bushes, ton of trees. There's deciduous trees. There's conifers. There are ornamental trees in there. There's a wide range. Jim Allen I've worked with him for 30 years. He's done great landscape architecture for us, and this will be no different. If again, I don't even have to turn around to say, Joe, will you do a nice job on the entry? Yeah, we have the numbers. We meet the ordinance. Can you make sure that the entry is booming? Joe just sold 10 houses in one weekend. The average price at that site was over $500,000. It's the same house that we're talking about. They will make this a great neighborhood. So you have a berm and you have a pond, and the pond's got some retaining walls inside the pond, short ones. We talked on the other side where if we moved the pond to the other side, we were gonna have to do a 15-foot high retaining wall. There's some tiers of 4-foot walls on one edge of that pond. That's gonna make great landscape ledges with some rock walls, a berm. It's gonna be a fantastic neighborhood, fantastic looking neighborhood.
And high quality signage materials?
High quality signage materials, no problem whatsoever. I'd be happy if you made a motion to approve it, to make that a condition of the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
Anyone else? Mary Newland?
I've got a question. I'm a believer that a neighborhood or community is only as strong as the variety of its residents. And I know this is being marketed to toward seniors, the empty nesters. What precludes or what stops a family or let's say, a young professional couple from moving in?
Nothing. Nothing. It's not age restricted. It's age targeted. So we're doing another development that's a Del Webb age restricted development where you must be 55 and older to move in. I'm 53. I'd have to wait 2 more years to get in there. This is age targeted, which means that the houses are designed for people like me and people 10 years my senior and 20 years my senior.
Like me.
Or my folks. Weren't we in the same class together? Come on. No, they're targeted. And so what does that mean? They're single-story ranch homes. You have a master on the first floor, the laundry on the first floor, wide doorways, a lot of features that people that are empty nesters appreciate. People with a big family, you know, I had a house in South Lyon and that was a family house, everybody upstairs, kids and swing sets in the backyard and all that. That's not where I live now. Me and my wife have a renovated house in Plymouth that we have a first floor master and the laundry right next to it because it's convenient for our stage in life. So it's a targeted product. The house is what draws the customer. There's nothing that says you must be retired, you must be of a certain age, but if you're a family of 4, where are you gonna sleep?
Well, I mean, we know a lot of the younger couples are now opting for less children. So how many units on the development would you, let's say if you had a young couple with 1 child, would be looking at to be able to move into one of these properties?
There's no restriction on that
There's no
whatsoever.
restriction.
It's age targeted. So age targeted means the product is designed to be attractive to those buyers. What we could do is we could go and say, well, the demographics show that these are primarily 1 and 2 person households. 1 and 2 persons. That's one of the reasons that we can say that age targeted and age restricted communities can also say it, have less of an impact because there's fewer cars. They don't have teenage kids. They don't have the buses going through there. They don't have new drivers. You know, the houses are built. There's no option for a 3rd car for, you know, your daughter who's working at the dermatology. I'm using myself as an example again. My daughter works at a dermatology place. She's in a gap year between her undergrad and trying to become a PA, and she's living at home with us again for a year before she goes off to school again. I have a space for her to park in my house, but where will all of those cars park? It's just not designed for it, and so therefore it doesn't attract the families. Someone's not going to come in and pay $425,000 and not have a room for all their kids.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Dr. Massey?
Go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem Boulevard?
Yes. I was one of the ones who voted down the proposal
Yes, ma'am.
some months ago. And I've been struggling with this because of the density issue on this piece of property.
Yes?
I know you've done a lot to address some of those concerns. I like the fact that Councilman Strickfed asked about perhaps putting some benches and trees or fire pits in the common area toward the cul-de-sac. I like what you said about the entranceway, about how that's going to be landscaped and how it's going to look. I also like the look of these homes and all the amenities that you're offering for this parcel, but I'm still struggling with the number of houses that are going to be in that piece of property. Yes.
Maybe I can put the density into perspective here,
Yes.
if I could, and maybe explain the dynamics of the area. Not to discount anybody's concerns over density. I get that. But this is a single-family cluster development. You are going to, that's the tenet of this ordinance is to cluster the homes together. And I understand that makes it, and to have open space. And so some of the neighbors are going to get open space and some of the neighbors are going to get a few more houses. That's just the dynamic of the ordinance. Now, if you look at the area, To the west, you have multiple family. That's 10 units per acre. To the east, you have single family. This is a 10-acre piece of property. If you split it up into two sides, you've got the multiple family and the single family. You count up the units, 11 units, that is adjacent to the single family at 5 acres. That's 2.1 units per acre. That's exactly what the ordinance provides for the single family. It's 2.8 units per acre adjacent to the multiple family. That's where you've got the added density, where the transition should be. When they flip the development, that's how you achieve this goal of transition to the single family. So I don't know what else they can do to alleviate this concern. When they flip the unit, you've got the higher, there's 14 units adjacent to the multiple family and 11 units adjacent to the single family. So, you can keep knocking off units, obviously, but the ordinance is being met, the transition is being met, and this is a cluster development, and that's what you get when you have a cluster development. That's what we promote, is the clustering of the units to provide for open space. So that's where we're at with this development, and hopefully that puts the density into perspective.
Thank you.
And the ordinance.
Yeah. And before I end, I also like the fact that there's fencing that's going along the property line where those residents wanted fencing initially, and were told that that was not possible. I like the fact that you've staggered some of the trees that are going along the fence line. But as I mentioned before, and I think Mr. Gardner has elaborated on the issue of the density, but so thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Boulevard. I appreciate your thoughtfulness in this matter. I remember the last meeting, and Mayor Barnett, it was late, and you guys really give it consideration, and I don't think I've ever been to a city where they take the residents so seriously. And you listen, and we hope that you can determine that we also listen. We tried to move in their direction as much as possible, again and again, and I hope that you'll support this. I know you're on the fence. We're gonna make it a fantastic looking development, one that you'll be proud of. So thank you for your consideration.
Anyone else? Dr. Massey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for all your time tonight. I have one quick question. I want to revisit this idea of that little boulevarded entrance. Because just so happens that I have somebody in my family who sits on our beautification commission, and I had the opportunity a couple of weekends ago to go drive around and take pictures of subdivision entrances for the beautification. And there are subdivisions that have really nice boulevard entrance. Explain to me why that isn't necessarily feasible, because what I'm thinking of is a very small median, maybe a couple of feet wide, and it only extends maybe 25 feet back, and then the road comes back together. And from the street side, that looks very appealing, plus there can be some plantings there and so forth. So I wanted to ask you about that.
Yes, Doctor. So the issue with the boulevard, again, our original proposal, that's where we started with the boulevard. So the nose of the boulevard can't be out in the 9 Mile Road right away, right? So you have to be started back. That currently has a 33 half right away. We'll be dedicating the additional 27 feet to the city for the 9 Mile Road right away. So now that moves the start of the boulevard 60 feet off of the center line of 9 Mile Road. So first it's pushed back in, okay? So now you've got—
Just for clarity, that's because there are turn lanes.
Well, no, there's going to be turn lanes whether there's a boulevard or not.
Okay, but that moves it back a little.
What I'm suggesting is the nose of that island can't be in the road right away. So you have to pull it back to the edge of the road right away, which is 60 feet from the center line of the road. So this boulevard that you might imagine being able to see out on 9 Mile Road is actually set back into the site more than you think, right? It starts at 60 feet. And let's say you wanted it to be 20 feet long. A car is 20 feet long. So one car length long of this boulevard. And let's say you wanted to have it 10 feet wide, right? You can't have it 5. I mean, you're going to put a tree in the middle. It has to be able to live. It has to have roots, and it has to grow and thrive, right? So now you've spread that pavement out. Both drive lanes need to be wide enough to take a car. So they got to be a minimum of 24 feet. You know, so now you've got 2 24-foot drive lanes coming down through there. You got 48 feet of asphalt pavement, as opposed to the 27 that you would have with a single road. So what's the difference of having the planter in the middle? Wouldn't you be better off? And I made this argument all the time. I was with another builder who I won't mention for 20 years, planning stuff all over the country. And why would you spend more extra money? If you're trying to make your entrance look better, spend it on landscaping. Spend it on hardscaping. Don't spend it on pavement, because you're paying for 4 curbs instead of 2. Double the pavement.
So that makes sense, but to Councilwoman Knoll's question, then you would put the money into the 2 sides of the entrance where you could do landscaping there, high quality materials for the sign and so forth, that you would build into that. Would those signs be lighted? And that would give it that curb appeal, but it would bring it even closer to
100%. Move the additional money into the enhancing the sign, enhancing the landscape, rather than buying more pavement that the city ultimately is going to have to maintain. It's a public road. And it's spending money without getting a benefit for that buck. Usually when you buy a foot of road, you're going to get closer to the next lot, right? If you have a double loaded road. When you buy a boulevard, you're getting, I understand it's different out on, say, Orchard Lake Road. That boulevard looks great because it goes from 696 all the way down to 11 and then almost down to 10, right? It looks great because it's a mile, and it really makes it, and that's probably 120 or 150 foot wide right of way. This is a small little island in the middle.
And that actually addresses my question.
Okay.
And it makes some sense to me. I also want to comment on the fact that I am cognizant of the fact that our Planning Commission colleagues have approved this as a cluster site development option, and I understand that, and I appreciate your work to decrease the density, even albeit a little bit more, and then moving the higher density side to the south, be the south side of the road going in there, so it's closer to the apartments, which makes to the west. West, yeah, that's right. And goes north-south. So, sorry, my compass was off a little bit there.
It's my fault. I turned the site plan and it threw everything off.
Well, it's always on its side.
It has to be. It's just that long, narrow piece of property.
But putting the higher numbers closer to the multifamily, I greatly appreciate the fact that you listened to the residents and tried to meet them and their needs with the landscaping and the buffering from the landscaping, as well as the fencing, and thanks for the clarity on that. I want to really commend you on having fire suppression within these units. I happen to think, I'm not one of fond of saying you have to do it because it increases the cost of the building, but you're building new and being forethought. I do. I'm in the safety mindset there. So the fences are good, and I like what I've heard today, and I understand it is not perfect, but this is a very difficult parcel of property, and therefore, I would like to move that this cluster site plan and open space plan 60-10-2020 that's dated August 24, 2021 be approved. It is further resolved that an escrow deposit of $136,792 be submitted to ensure the completion of the open space plan, and further resolved that the city attorney prepare a cluster agreement setting forth the condition for approval, city council consideration approval, and in that we have community amenities that go into those open spaces, has been brought up by a couple of my colleagues, and that the signage and the landscaping in the front be of very high quality, very nice. I like those stone types of signs and a high-quality sign that gives it that Farmington Hills look. And further resolved that the city attorney is directed to prepare and stipulate on behalf of the city to entry of an order vacating or dismissing the consent judgment in the case of Piedmontese Social Club versus City of Farmington Hills, Oakland County Circuit Court case number 75-129064, and council's approval of this cluster site and open space plan be subject to court approval and entry of such an order.
Support. It's been moved by Dr. Massey, seconded by Mr. Bridges. I did not weigh in yet, so I'm going to take a personal privilege here and make a comment. I want to thank you for your diligent, hard work. I asked you to remove 2 of the units on the entrance on the east side. You did, which gives us more green space for a greener canopy that appears to the road. I wanted the cul-de-sac flipped. I wanted you to get rid of a unit. You did. I like the fact that the green space now in the back is all one piece and it's very accessible, so we could put amenities in there. No one's going to be fully happy with the development going up against their current home. That's just the way we are as people. But we can't deny, when you meet the ordinance, your ability to build, and you have gone above and beyond, and the residents, I feel for you. I know how you feel, but I think this is going to be a beautiful development when it all ends. And for those of you who may want to rethink a fence, if you want to, the proponent will adjust to that. But I also think that the extra money spent in trees, especially deer-resistant trees, are going to make a big difference. And I don't know how else you could possibly come in with a better fit for this piece of land, other than making sure that the entranceway is fully green and treed. And personally, I don't like the idea of a boulevard, because I think for sustainability and flooding issues and groundwater, that the best option is to make sure that we have as limited pavement as possible. And you're doing that, and you're making the streets public, which is what we wanted as well. So while I'm not completely thrilled, because I would like it less dense, I don't think we have an option, and I think you've come a long way from where you were at the beginning. And I want to thank you for working hard to making sure that the Benegers have the relief that they wanted, and that most of the residents on the back part of the, that will be backing up to the east side of your project, several of them will have green space behind them. The others will have a little more density, but you will have the same setback that you would have from a development if any other housing project came in. So they're keeping the back setback the same, which is the most noticeable part of anything we do. They're not building 2 stories right on top of you. And that would block your sun view, and it would change the whole character of where you live, and these are ranch units. So I think that the impact will be minimal. And so I will support this project. Anyone else? Okay, is this a roll call vote or just a regular vote? Regular straight up vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Looks like it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And that brings us, somewhere here is my agenda. That brings us to unfinished business, number 5, consideration of approval of revised plan unit development plan 2021, dated August 25th, 2021, the Sarah Fisher home located at 27400 12 Mile Road.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The proponent has submitted for council consideration a revised plan unit development plan to redevelop a 31.5-acre parcel of property located on 12 Mile Road that we know as the former Sarah Fisher site. The project proposes to utilize the site for a skilled nursing facility and 136 single-family townhouses. Property is zoned RA1B, one-family residential, and the site is also designated as a historic site. The proposed PUD was first presented to council at a public hearing and consideration of approval at your May 24th, 2021 meeting. Revised plans were presented to City Council at its August 9th, 2021 meeting. After discussion and public hearing, the City Council passed a motion to postpone their final decision on this project to the September 13th, 2021 meeting. The proponent asked for a postponement from that September 13th meeting to the September 27th, tonight's meeting, to get final resolution on this proposed development. Following my comments, the proponent should update you as to where they're at in their proposal, and if needed, Mr. Rod Arroyo could remake his present land use presentation. The council meeting, or the public hearing part of this, was held and postponed at the previous meeting, so there's no need for a public hearing, but obviously if somebody submits a blue slip, they can speak to this item. With that, I suggest the proponent come forward and reacquaint the council with their proposal.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Pleasure to be here again. This is Raj Patel. I've been in front of you a couple of times now. Own and operate Optalis Healthcare. We have presented this project a couple of times. Lastly, or most recently in August, the first meeting in August. And we were able to take back a lot of feedback, commentary, insights, and hopefully incorporated those into these revisions that we're going to present today. And we have obviously part of the development consists of two parts. The skilled nursing facility on the south side, the south half of the site, which is being developed by my company, and our partner developer here is Robertson Brothers. They're going to develop on the north side of the site, and we have short slide deck here. We've presented this before, so we'll move through it a little quicker and kind of just highlight, if I could, the things that we've incorporated since the last presentation. This has already been presented. I'll skip through this. I think it went too far. All right, so what we've took a lot of notes in the last meeting, and there was some commentary around some amenities and the ability to maybe synthesize this more into the surrounding sort of the natural topography and the features of the site. And we took that, we took that theme, studied it well, and decided that we could do more in terms of making it a more green development, environmentally friendly, biophilic, and where it harmonizes more with just the way the land flows. So we've also, I think the last revision we had on the south side of the development, I could say that there was a reduction in the total number of parking spots. So we added a land bank and so forth. And then in this version of these further revisions, if you will, we've added some other amenities above and beyond what we had, and they're a little hard to see here, but I can try to point to them. Hopefully you have a closer view, but at least on the south side, and Robertson can talk about the changes on the north side in a few, but we've added things, and for easy, I guess, visualization, they're noted in red. So we've added some, where we're saving these historical structures, right here, where I'm pointing with this laser pointer, This is going to be possible art sculpture park with public access and Wi-Fi capabilities and so forth. We're showing EV charging stations for staff, and then we've added more prep for the future. If in the next 10 years or so, there's more of our employees will come in with electric cars, this will be an easy conversion allowing for that. We've got some other features here where we hope to incorporate, make some use of flat wall space, possibly a mural wall here facing Inkster. We've got prep for 3D projections if the wall and the city, this is something that we want to do, we'll have at least the prep for it. And further on this, the west side of the site, we've added for, I guess I can show you in the next one, some connectivity with this walking trail. It's showing here, just getting cut off a little bit here, but this connects both the residential side to the facility side. This is something that we heard as a comment in terms of, the projects needed to feel like they were a little more connected. And our hope is to, and we've committed to try to repurpose as many the materials that we can from the demolition of these structures to sort of reincorporate those, obviously be sustainable and environmentally friendly there. So those are the key changes that are in this version from the version in August. And I will pause for any questions on the nursing home side, and I'll let, then we'll go from there.
Does anybody have any questions at this point? Mr. Strickbaden?
Thank you. What assurances would council have that these additional amenities, like the bike and walking trail in here, the art sculpture park in here, 3D projection mapping for future prep, solar panel future prep, mural wall future, EV charging stations future? I'd like to get back to the future, but what assurances can you give council that this is actually going to be done, how it's going to be done, and when?
I guess we are going to prep for them, so I'm not really clear on what assurances as far as it will be part of the site plan when we come in. It will be marked on the site plan. It's part of our plan and how we develop this. It'll be part of our drawings when we develop the site. So are you looking for a specific assurance of?
I think Mr. Jopik wants to weigh in on this.
Okay.
Yes, this would be a planned unit development, and to the extent that things are shown on the PUD plan that you have before you for consideration, that would be incorporated into the agreement, and the developer, the owner of the property and developer, would be agreeing to include whatever is shown on that site plan by way of the PUD agreement. That's where the assurances would come from with this particular type of development. There'd also, as was mentioned, there would also be a site plan and any higher level details that might be included on that site plan are required to be completed per state law, city ordinance, and the PUD agreement as well. So there are a number of ways that the representations made will be addressed. The question of timing is something, however, that we would certainly need to perhaps have some discussions. I don't believe that's indicated on any of the materials. I hope that helps answer the question about assurances anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Knoll?
Yes, the charging stations. So, I was always fine with the skilled nursing. I thought it was great the way it was. So, but these amenities you've put in, fine, that's great. These charging stations with the residents of actually the being proposed, the brownstones, would they be able to use them? Because I'm not so sure you're going to have that many. You will, obviously, in the skilled nursing facility, the residents won't be using them, so it would maybe be some visitors coming to visit them now and then. I'm not so sure your staff is necessarily all going to have EVs for many, many, many years. So, so that they don't get wasted and actually get used, would the residents of the brownstones be able to use them? Because that's
Not necessarily. I mean, we're not going to advertise it like that.
That's actually what was requested, is
By-
for the brownstones.
Right, but that part of the presentation's coming still.
Right.
So I
but
think
there's
you'll see those
Well,
in that set.
okay, so they may be sitting empty, but then the residents can't come over and use them if the parking space is empty and there's a charger there, and
I guess it's a place of business, it's a commercial property, so it's really for the people that have business with that site, essentially our employees, visitors, staff, and visiting professionals and so forth. So that's why we've added some, or we're showing some, and then we have it wired. We'll have it wired so we can add more if, let's say we only have 2 or 3 and people are fighting over them, then it's time to add a few more type of thing.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll hear the rest of the presentation.
I do.
Oh,
Mary
Mary Ellen?
Newland.
Mary Newland?
Mary Newland, go ahead.
So
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
concerned about the description of the facility. It was first billed to us as a state-of-the-art rehab center.
Correct.
Now we're calling it skilled nursing, as I figured it was going to be called skilled nursing. Out of the prediction of how many residents you would be beginning with, how many would you say is going to be long-term care, which will result in how many, let's say, daily runs for our now fire department for medical assistance?
So, skilled nursing facility is the official definition as the licensing goes with the state of Michigan. So it is a rehab facility. It is still a state-of-the-art rehab facility like no other in Oakland County, is my view. But you have to call them for licensing a skilled nursing facility. The hope, the way we're designing this with a high number of private rooms and the type of capabilities that this facility will have will attract the highest rehab potential patients for the local hospitals and so forth. So we're talking probably 75% plus of the actual patients receiving care there will be for a short amount of time. Short-term stay, which is your 15 to 20-day stay. And inevitably, some of those patients that come for care turn into chronic care cases, and we're not able to just, show them the door. So we end up taking care of them, some of them longer term, but we're able to limit the number of licensed beds we have for long-term patients. So that would be less than a 25% number.
So you're predicting 25% for your long-term care?
Long-term, yes.
Are you done? Mary Ellen?
Excuse me.
Okay. So we'll bring up the proponent for the residential portion.
Good evening again. Tim Lochran, Director of Land Acquisition for Robertson Homes, 6905 Telegraph, Bloomfield Hills. Madam Mayor, members of the council, it's good to see you again. I feel like I'm much shorter this time, I'll tell you that. Oh, yeah. Put Mark on the spot. Sorry about that. So again, it's great to be here in front of you again to discuss the townhome portion of the Sarah Fisher site. So some of this presentation will be similar. Obviously, I want to run through some of the basics. We've made quite a number of revisions that I'm happy to go through in detail. We're very excited about it. There's a lot of things that we were able to do that we kind of took head on and I think have made a much better proposal.
So the site's about 9 net acres, zone RA1B. There's 136 total, organized around auto courts and multiple central parks. So really, it's two distinct, and they are for sale, I want to stress that, two distinct for sale single-family townhome offerings. First, there is an entry-level, approximately 1,200 square foot, single-car, 2-bedroom and 2.5 bath unit. There's also then a first move-up, 1,600 square foot, slightly larger, 2-car, 2-bedroom or 2-bedroom with den option with a 2.5 bath. And again, these are for sale. The buyers would select which unit they would like. If they want the 2-bedroom, the 2-bedroom with den, then they'd be able to go to our design gallery to add any options that they'd see fit. I know there was some confusion on the ownership structure, the ownership model. They will all be for sale. Just want to repeat that. We will have a master deed that will be created that'll establish a homeowners association that'll be responsible for maintenance of all landscaping, all of the exteriors, roofs, everything. So it's a zero maintenance type of community with an HOA that would maintain it to high standards. So a couple of the highlights. High quality, owner occupied, I said it again. Missing middle homes. Missing middle, that's a real buzzword, and I don't like to throw buzzwords around. But this is a very important concept. In fact, it is the reason why we're in front of you today. Robertson builds more townhomes than really any other developer in Southeast Michigan. We know what we're doing, we know when we see a market, and we believe there's a market here. Simply, there's no option for buyers in this location looking for attainable new housing. To build a new home, we can't sell them for less than $450,000, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, but the way that land development costs are, the way construction costs are, this is attainable housing. This is where people can get into the new home market, which they just simply can't with detached housing. They're going elsewhere. They're going to other communities. They're going to our communities and other communities. They're going to Novi. They're going to our communities in Brighton, in Wixom, in Royal Oak. We just received approvals in Lyon Township. We just received approvals in Pittsfield. They're going to different areas that communities do recognize the need for this type of housing in their communities, and it's something that has been very successful. And I think if you'd ask these communities, I think they're proud to have these types of developments for their home buyers to stay in the market and not go to another community. I'm talking about single professionals, I'm talking about divorcees, I'm talking about young families, I'm talking about young empty nesters. This is the type of buyers that are looking for this exact type of no maintenance housing. So we know there's a market there, we've done our research. There just is not an option anywhere nearby for these people to stay in the community. 136 new taxpayers, 30 million over 30 years. Multiple open space pockets throughout. It's a very walkable and inviting community. I'll go through the site plan. We did that on purpose. We included a lot of walking trails and made it very, very inviting. Lots of different areas to gather. Significant internal amenities. We're reusing some of the historic materials in our piers and our signage. So we think that that's very important. And again, housing option for residents are vastly underserved. I can't really hit that hard enough. Just shameless self-promotion. Robertson's been in business for a very long time, and we do have a very good reputation. We take that very seriously. And what that means to you is you have a developer that's going to do what they say. And we are, we build a good product and we stand by it. So I think Raj had shown this. It's really just the overall site plan, how it interrelates with the skilled nursing and with the surrounding roadway system. Site context, this is just Google Earth. Again, just showing where it sits in relation to the surrounding uses. I do want to point out, this is a fairly heavy and intense area. Inkster Road has a lot of commercial development. You can see a lot of pavements that's out in this area. You see higher density residential, you see office buildings, you see retail, and then of course you have Northwestern, which is up and down. It's a very highly intense corridor in this area.
Not so much with residential, certainly with commercial. And as you know, commercial is certainly waning in some respects. We feel residential is a perfect mix for this location, in particular, working with Raj's group. So I want to focus on the site plan revisions. These are the differences from when I last met with you, I think it was about a month ago. So we showed you 154 plans, and I know we'll have discussion on density. The townhomes in general they actually build at a higher density than this, if you can believe this. We have some that are well over 20 units per acre. We're not proposing that. But essentially townhomes, you can't build them at 5 units per acre, 7 units per acre. Just from an economical standpoint, to make these that attainable housing, there is a certain density that is required. The original plan called for 154 units, and we showed 35 feet to the western perimeter, the western property line, which is where our nearest neighbors are. We've revised that plan. Since revised that plan, we're showing 136 units, so it's a drop of 18 units. And the nearest unit to the western property line, rather than 35 feet, is now 81 feet. So we really pulled that back, and it's not, before we had the fronts of the units, now that's the side of the units for the most part, which is, obviously less eyes, if you will. But I want to stress, this is 81 feet to the property line. It's almost 200 feet to the nearest home. There's also a huge grade difference. I don't know it on the top of my head, but John will probably tell me it's probably in the neighborhood of 20 feet, 20 to 30 feet, different grade level. We don't relate to the neighbors to the west. We're relating to Inkster Road, and we're relating to the Raj's group, his development as well. So that's how we see it, but we do want to be sensitive to our neighbors, so we pulled off quite a bit. Again, 81 feet to the property lines, about 200 feet to the nearest home. So that's the edges. We really wanted to concentrate on the edges. We reduced the setbacks from Chasewood as well. I want to point that out. It was 15 feet, now it's 34 feet. So we more than doubled what the setback to Chasewood was. And that's to the front porch, 34 feet to the front porch. Inkster, we also increased from 20 feet to the front porch to 28 feet. So we really, on every single externality, we tried to buffer more than what we had before. Even, I think, more exciting and more important in this, we included a lot more amenities. So we really focused on, maybe I'll show you the landscape plan, which would be a little bit better. We really focused on things such as, artwork, community gardens, natural play areas, decorative piers. We relocated an existing historic sign. Honestly, we had a lot of fun with this. We tasked our land planner to take another stab at it. Of course, reduce the density, reduce the setbacks, but let's create something that's special. That's something that has some kind of character to it. And I believe that's what we did. So I believe we had the 4 central open space areas before. These are much more identified at this point. We gave them all different identifying names, and there's a reason for each one. So one of them has artwork. One of them is more of a community gathering area. One of them has the relocated historic sign to really show this is something that was here before, and this is something that we should pay homage to. All of them will have the decorative piers, again with the bricks from the previous buildings. Community gardens, that's something we hadn't shown before. It's something we've done in a couple of our communities, and it's gone, it's taken to very well from our residents. Multi-use paths, we've got a connection, if you can see on the bottom, going out to Raj's development. So we have that kind of inner relationship, and they can get down to 12 Mile and out. So typically we have these open to the public as well, if that's something that the city's interested in. But we really wanted to focus on this, on these community kind of gathering spaces with real, true identity. You can see on the bottom also we're proposing a natural play themed area. We've done this in a couple of communities, and really it's really neat to see. It's not the typical blue turf tot lot that you would expect. It really has a nice natural look to it. So we think all of these ideas, and we're open to others, but we think we really wanted to focus on these things and create a nice community. Each unit will have an EV electric vehicle charging unit. It'll be wired for electric vehicle charging within each unit. We don't specify which brand, obviously, because we don't know what the buyer is going to have, but they're all wired for that, so they all have the outlet for that. We're also proposing, we do have a couple spaces for EV charging stations internally, so that's sort of in the middle by where the nature theme park is. So that's something that actually we haven't done yet, but we're proposing that in a couple other communities. I think it makes a lot of sense to have that in there. Even though each unit will have their own EV charging, this would be more for guests that would be visiting. And then just point out, these are private streets. Everything would be maintained by an HOA, so replacement of the asphalt and snow removal would all be covered by the HOA. So getting into the product design, I showed you this last time. This is what we would be proposing. We do have other options, and I'm happy to go through that with you. I did get the sense last time that some of those might not quite fit into Farmington Hills as much, so we think this type of product would be very well received in the market. Again, they're 3-story, anywhere from 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, 2-bedroom and den. And I think I'd mentioned last time, we do have some, I think our nearest model that's open, still open, would be in Brighton, and that would be a very similar type of product to what we're proposing. These are some of the other examples. Some of these are probably more urban, but we're open to discussion as far as what works for Farmington Hills. We don't want to dictate that. We think this is an iterative process as we move through. Just again, this is a little bit more detail. I show this because there was some questions on the height. The height of the units to the midpoint, which I believe you measure height, is 35 feet. So we're just under 35 feet. It's 34.7 3/4 or whatever it is. So I just want to point that out. Both the 1-car and the 2-car are just under 35 feet to the midpoint. I know the underline is 30 feet. We'd be asking for a deviation to 35 feet for the height. And this does show the backs of the units. We don't typically feature that much, but obviously we put a lot toward the front, so we're talking about board and batten vinyl and brick. And then we've got the front balconies and the porches underneath, so they have two private areas, if you will, for each unit. Just to point out, in case it's not clear, each, say, elevation A, elevation B, elevation C, each one of those is an individual unit. Nobody lives on top of each other. These are truly attached single-family homes. They're not stacked. So it is we do believe it is, kind of some first-time move-up type of buyers, but it is single-family for all intents and purposes. That's how we look at this. And then you can see the sides. We do continue the brick around, and we do have a brick belt on the back for both of them as well. These are the floor plans. The Aspen is our 1-car. It's 1,200 up to 1,330 square feet if they do take what we call the Zoom room, which is that flex room there. It's basically part of the garage. They can finish it out as I don't know how many square feet, I guess 130 square feet. And again, we call it the Zoom room. But it's actually nicely appointed family room, office, you name it, whatever they want down on the first floor. And then their foyer up to the second level, which is your living and dining and kitchen area. Everything's very open, lots of windows. And this is the smaller unit, and it's got the 2 bedrooms. The larger unit, which is about 1,600 square feet, includes a 2-bedroom option with a den. This is wider, it's 20 feet, does feel bigger, does have more light in it. But again, you've got that real open concept in both cases. I only show this to kind of demonstrate who we are. These are all Robertson projects that we've either just finished or we're currently building. So again, some of these are nearby communities. I would say that for the most part, these communities are well received in the market. People really need this type of housing. their options are very limited. Either they would rent, or they'd buy an old fixer-upper like I have and spend way too much money fixing it up, which is not something a first-time homeowner necessarily wants to deal with. So there just really aren't options out there for that type of buyer, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of millennials, as we all know, that are looking to go out and start their own lives and start their own families. So this is really the perfect option for them to do that. And that's it. That's the site plan, the elevations, and the amenities. I'm happy to speak in detail anymore. Of course, Raj as well. But thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Bridges?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This question for Mr. Patel first. In regards to the, you mentioned 25% of the nursing facility will be dedicated to long-term care, right?
Approximately.
Okay.
Approximately.
And what kind of assurance can you give the council in regards to maintaining that and not increasing that?
It would be against our own economic interest to increase the long-term percentage. Is that, if I understand your question correctly? You want an assurance that we would
Not increase that.
Not increase it. Right. So economically, it's less attractive for us to have the long-term patients. The short-term patients are the more profitable, quicker turnaround rehab patients. So the 25 or 20% or so that we end up taking care of are ones that we have to take care of because they're not able to move back onto the community and so forth.
Let me,
So we're
City Attorney.
economically motivated already.
I want to ask the city attorney, question is, can we put that in our language, in our agreement, that a ceiling at 25%?
In terms of the type
Long-term
of care, long-term, short-term?
Yes.
I think that might be challenging in terms of being able to enforce and being able to adequately follow up on. I can certainly check into that. I don't think we've done that with any other developments, but
Well,
there
I'd like
might
to
be some
see,
legal issues with that.
I'd like to see you do just that, give the council, I understand, but I'd like for you to investigate, research that particular question. Thank you. The other question is for the,
Mike, before you go on to the next question.
May I make a comment on that?
Yes.
That would not be in the best interest of the patient. You can't mandate a patient's care. If the patient needs to stay there longer because they're still rehabbing, that's what needs to happen. You're not going to kick them out on the street or say you've been here a certain number of days, and we're past our 25%, you now need to go into another facility. Patient care has got to be the number one priority when you're running a business.
I do understand.
And licensing won't allow us to do that, and the Department of Health won't.
well, I want our city attorney to investigate, we can do that.
No problem.
Yeah, I also believe it will violate their licensing through state law.
Okay.
There's certain things that we can as a city do and we can't.
Okay.
And because they're licensed a certain way, they have to follow those licensing agreements, and those are guided by the state.
But I can assure you once again that economically, we need no further incentive. The people that end up staying longer are because, first of all, they don't want to stay there forever. We'd rather have them go home and back to their homes and so forth. It's out of sort of call it the option of last resort. That's where they end up staying sort of long-term in a nursing home.
Okay.
So nobody really wants that. We don't want it as much as you don't want it. Nobody wants it.
I understand. This question goes to the apartment residential portion of the project. What percentage, you mentioned that there's a ceiling on renters. Was that 25%, 10%?
So, well, I think what I mentioned last time was typically no more than 10% is what we experience in our communities. We can put in a percentage in our master deed and bylaws. Typically we get to about 45% is what we show in our master deed, but I'll tell you, it's typically, I wouldn't say more than 10% of it. Is it 47% per building?
They're all for sale. Owners are allowed to rent it. We can prohibit down there.
All right. This question goes to the concern of the residential abutting property, the Hickory Oaks property, that concern about market impact upon their homes. And that's a very important consideration, that we do want to have owner occupied, and you already said you have it in your proposal, but we want to ensure that it's not going to be an increased amount of creeping amount or more renters coming in there as well.
Yes, just to clarify, and Jim, I think hit on the, oops, screw this up, hit on the nail. So basically from us, it's not apartments. I heard apartments. These are all for sale units. We sell to basically a buyer, and then we put in our master deed language where we limit the number of units that can be rented out at any given time. So they manage that going forward. They have to basically apply to rent their units. So we will not be renting any units. We do not do that. These are all for sale units. The intent is not to have any rentals. We just can't say you cannot rent. Just like when you sell a single family home, they could ultimately, at some point in the future, rent it, but we try to limit that percentage.
Understood. These are questions that seeking clarification on. That's why
Sure,
I'm
of
asking these
course.
questions. Mentioned about you had two different types of, was it 2 or 3 different options for the residential portion regarding the square footage and
Yes.
what is the market price variability between those particular options you mentioned?
So we haven't priced out. Obviously, we're very early on, but our other communities with similar type of homes, the Aspen, which is a 1,200 square foot to 1,300 square foot, we start, I would say, in really the mid to high 200s as a base price. And then the 1,600 square feet, which is here, which is, again, a 2-bedroom or 2-bedroom and den with a 2-car, those typically start in the high 200s. So there's probably a delta of about $25,000, $30,000 between the 1-car and the 2-car typically.
And that's based on what you feel you can get for that particular property?
Yes, that's a base price. So what we do is, each unit, there may be some that, the end units typically have a premium, a lot premium. So that would be in addition to the base pricing. And then they may want to, upcharge their countertops, their cabinets, their flooring. So that all raises to the base price. So the base price is really the starting point for each of those units.
What do you expect it to go at?
I'm sorry?
What do you expect the price to end up at on average, all those?
I would say they probably put in, our townhomes probably put in somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 per unit in regard to options and lot premiums and that sort of thing.
Thank you, appreciate
It's
it.
about 10%, 12%.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Strickfaden and then Ms. Newland.
Thank you, Mayor. I've looked at the 2 plans that you proposed, and it doesn't seem as though there's been any accommodation for potential handicapped folks or older folks who would want to have an elevator. And that becomes even more problematic. If you take a 3-lift elevator, you need a 4-foot by 4-foot approximately shaft space designed into the garage area, the first floor and the second floor. And if you were doing that, you wouldn't even have to prep the framing, but that would be a $35,000 or $40,000 upcharge. If you're using the plans that you have there now, it probably would be $60,000 or $80,000 because you'd have to remodel the different sections of the floor in order to accommodate an elevator in any reasonable space. So my question is there a third option or a plan that you can put in to accommodate folks like that that may actually help sell out your development?
So we have not, Councilman Strickland, we have not built a unit like that. We have not built a townhome that accommodates an elevator. So you're right, I don't think we have the room in these to accommodate that. That's not really the target market that we're looking for. We've done that sort of thing in some of our mid-rise buildings. I can tell you the cost of mid-rise buildings, it really doesn't work. We're struggling in the locations we're at with mid-rise buildings. So from our standpoint, this type of product really is not conducive to the elevators.
Thank you.
Ms. Newland?
This is back to skilled nursing.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't think you answered one of my questions, which was, of course, with a mix of beds, with 100 days being your maximum on skilled nursing days, and then a variety of between those beds and your long-term beds. What is would you say would be your daily run rate for medical assistance?
You mean like an ambulance or
Yeah,
just
because
regular
I mean, we are looking at
transportation?
more and more skilled assisted living facilities in the community, and
I would say so there's two transportations. There's the emergency transportation, and then there's a scheduled transportation, which is just a regular mobility van. Between the two of them, probably 3 to 4 runs a week.
okay. Next question. What is your, let's say, licensed nursing to patient ratio and your CNA to patient ratios?
Well, in the short-term model, the short-term wings will have probably a 4-to-1 ratio, as four patients to a CNA, and probably, not probably, likely 8 patients to a nurse.
I'm just trying to get a assurance that this is a quality facility.
It's CMS Medicare license. We abide by their quality metrics, and all of our existing properties are the highest star ratings that you can get. So we're going to invest a significant amount of money in this property, and we don't want any type of licensure issues. It's going to be the highest quality care that you can get, and that's what we deliver to every other resident in any other of our buildings anywhere around town. So it's just how we do business. So you have our assurances there. I can promise you that.
Well, let me ask, I think I skipped over Ms. Knoll, and I want to go back. Did you have anything that you wanted to say?
I did.
Okay.
For Mr. McLaughlin, or sorry, it's just Laughlin, not McLaughlin, right?
Lochran.
Lochran.
Yeah. Nobody gets it right.
Sorry,
Don't worry, nobody gets it right. Siri gets it wrong all the time, I'll tell you that.
Definitely made improvements on the plan. I think flipping the layout so that the back of the units is not to the neighborhood to the west is helpful.
Okay.
So instead they have one end unit. Appreciate that. You definitely added in some amenities. Thank you for that as well. The one thing I just want to mention is, of course, as you're well aware, this is a historical site. And the property to your south, where the skilled nursing is going to retain the administration building as well as 2 of the cottages.
Correct.
And I'm sure you're familiar with what they look like.
Yes.
I believe it's very important that the character be sustained on the site for both the buildings, for the skilled nursing as well as then for the brownstones. I think it needs to blend. I think it's not going to be I know you'll do a fine, you build nice buildings, so don't take this the wrong way, but it's going to look like someone just plopped down a bunch of buildings surrounding the old Sarah Fisher buildings if they are not designed in a way that uses similar type materials and maintains that historical character. Now, of course, you're not going to build them historical. You know, it actually looks too fake if you try to replicate it.
Right.
But it has to have some common feel to maintain that character of the historic buildings. So I'm hoping your designers are able to, your architects and designers are able to really work that into the entire site. I know it's two separate pieces of property here you're talking about that would be split off into, one housing and one skilled nursing. But I'd really like for that whole site to blend.
Okay, no, I think that's a great point. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's really an iterative process. So we're showing you what we think is as an example of what to start with. So I appreciate that direction. We can certainly look at that, and I think we can hit a lot of those. To your point, you certainly don't want to mimic.
No.
I've been in front of some historical
commissions, and they'd rather see something completely modern than us try to match it. So there's a little bit of juggling act with that, but we're willing to take a look at that because I hear what you're saying, and
You're directly north of it.
yeah, exactly.
So it
Okay.
should look integrated, but you're right, not mimic it, but at least maintain some look and feel, some aesthetics, so it doesn't look like you just plopped a bunch of buildings down around
We
it.
can look into that. I think it's a great comment.
Ms. Boulevard?
I think he answered. I had a similar question to Valerie, but you answered that. The entranceways, it's from Inkster Road, am I correct?
That's correct. The only access would be from Inkster. There's two, so it's basically, there's a shared entrance with the skilled nursing, as you can see, sort of middle of Inkster, and then our main, Boulevard entrance would be north of that.
Okay. And I have one question for Mr. Patel. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just trying to get some clarification on the facility that you're building.
Okay.
Is it a rehabilitation facility? Is it a skilled nursing facility? Or is it a long-term care facility? Or is it a combination of all three or two?
Those are synonyms in a sense, so the official...
But there are differences, distinct differences in all three.
So let me, if I may, the license that the facility will seek is a skilled nursing facility as defined by licensing regulations by the state. The types of care that we provide in this facility range from short-term rehabilitation, such as short-term rehabilitation is a post-acute event. So you go into a hospital for an acute episode, a fracture, a fall, a heart attack, a stroke. You might end up in the ICU, in the OR, and recovery for 3 or 4 days, but you're not well enough to go back home. There's a lot of recovery and rehabilitation that's required, but you don't need to take up a hospital bed for that. That's where you get stepped down to our type of facility, which is a skilled nursing facility, but they're commonly known as rehab facilities. It's sort of a lay way to put it, but really it's skilled nursing where rehabilitation's offered, wellness services are offered, and in some cases where some of these patients may not rehabilitate, where they're not able to go back to activities of normal living and back to their homes and so forth. So let's say a very bad stroke that despite of 2, 3, 4 months of rehab, they're just not getting back and they're not functional, that person may end up staying longer because they do actually need that 24/7 nursing and care and the physician services and so forth. So in some cases, which nobody wants, but unfortunately does happen, there are some patients that end up becoming long-term patients while staying at the skilled nursing facility. So in that building, you could have kind of all of the above. If that's hopefully that's answers clarifies your question.
Well, usually if, for example, a skilled nursing facility, that's when someone doesn't need the acute care services of a hospital, but they still need continuous care until they reach their maximum level of recovery.
Yes.
Rehabilitation could be physical rehabilitation. Usually you think of people, stroke victims or those who need rehabilitation to walk or stand or whatever. Then the long-term care is usually, they don't come home. They usually stay there until
That's correct.
death. So you're going to be a combination of all three of those. Or you're mainly skilled nursing facility care, and then if they still need some type of care, they can't go home.
Correct.
Which is often referred as convalescent care.
Yes.
Then you have a convalescent portion to that particular facility.
We would have
and
certain
that's about
beds.
25%, you said, about 25%.
We're going to have certain beds that are licensed and certified as such that will allow for long-term patients that often exhaust off their Medicare benefits
Mhm.
end up going on Medicaid.
Mhm.
But that's just unfortunate that they need so much care, but it is reality. And you're right, there's, it's a little bit of a, I guess, we talk about this every day, so, but let me put it this way. Rehabilitation and continuous care are probably not exclusive. They're happening like simultaneously with the patient. So whether it's an elective hip replacement or knee replacement or something like that where the patient's relatively healthy, but they've just got one bad part that needs changed out, and they go in, get a surgery done, come to rehab for 15, 20 days, and they're back playing golf. That's great. That's what we want. We want people to, just like a hospital, nobody wants a permanent hospital patient. No hospital wants a permanent hospital patient. Unfortunately, some people end up staying way longer than we need. And just like a hospital, just like nursing care is being given all the time, other disciplines come in, OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, everything's, whatever they need, we provide all of it.
And how many beds again is this facility?
This is, I think we're looking at 120 beds, if we can get the CONs and so forth approved.
Anyone else? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Strickfaden.
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Knowles. It would be a shame if this facility that you're building on the south side ended up looking like some kind of an alien spacecraft just landed there, especially compared to the historical buildings that I know you're taking great care to protect and preserve. So I hope that your architects are skilled enough to be able to try to meld those two together. I would like to say also that Councilman Knowles brought up with the last petitioner that the landscaping probably needs to be really well thought out and deer resistant. You may not be aware, but we have a lot of deer. They're somewhat hungry, and you don't want this to turn into a barren wasteland after a year. I would like to really point out that I was impressed with the fact that you've added amenities to the south side that I think would make it interesting enough if you do what you say you're going to do. I'd actually kind of want to drive in there with my lunch and sit in 3 or 4 different of the locations just on the south side just to kind of look around and look at the history and be welcomed by the nature. The biophilic way you've kind of set this up, I think is terrific. Can it be better? Sure. Could it be a lot worse? Yeah, that's not the reason why we should approve this, but if council chooses to approve it, I really do hope that you keep your word. And Mr. Loughran, I think what you did on the north side was commendable because you were sensitive to reducing the density, number one. Number two, I like the interconnection of the walking trail between the south side and the north side. It's modest, but it does the job. It connects the two, and I like that. I like all the different green spaces, community gardens, community centers, barbecues, sitting areas. Frankly, after I got done eating my lunch at Mr. Patel's side, I would kind of wait and sneak into the community side and see what was happening there. I mean, I could actually see some of these things being very, very pleasant. And I appreciate what you've done to make the north side better. So I just wanted to mention that, and thank you very much. And the lights are down.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's their fault. I don't know what they're on. Anyone else? Dr. Massey, go ahead. Oh, well, let me speak. And we have to hear from some residents. Personally, I'm very disappointed. And I'm disappointed because of the history of Wood Creek. And we asked you to lower the density, and you did, but not significantly. The units are still too tall. I don't think they try to blend in at all with the Wood Creek neighborhood. And while you consider this a much more intensive corridor, Wood Creek homeowners will tell you it's not. And so I will listen to the residents, and Dr. Massey will probably make a motion. I just want to tell you how I feel, that I would much rather see more expensive units and smaller and lower profile units here and a lower number, and that's just not what we're getting. So there is no continuity between this project and the Wood Creek neighborhoods that are to your west and to your north. And or even to the homeowners that are on the other side of 12 Mile Road. I think this is a real departure from what we expected and what I had hoped for. So I've just said my piece, and that doesn't mean that that's how the council is going to vote. I'm just telling you how I feel. I thought I had made it very clear that we needed to lower the number and lower the profile. And while we have added amenities, I don't think that makes up for the look and feel that we're looking for in this neighborhood that adjoins to a very precious neighborhood and historic neighborhood of Wood Creek. So just wanted to point that out. You don't have to answer any questions. I have none. I just expected you to lower the height profile and the density. And in fact, we've increased the number of rooms over the last plan that you brought before us. And we're not going in the direction that I thought we should go into. So you
right,
can respond if you wish.
Yeah, the only response I'd have is to the end. We reduced the units. We always had 2-bedroom units, so the room count didn't go up. It just wasn't accurate before. I don't know if maybe there was some confusion that we may have had 1-bedroom units before when we came here last month, but we've always had the same exact types of units. So the room count didn't go up from what we showed last month. We actually reduced it because we reduced it by 18 units.
I had hoped you'd come in with 2-story units. Thank you. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
For the residents, I would like to hear the residents first, and then you can make your motion.
Oh, sure.
We do have some blue slips. So, and again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Jeff Dawkins.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The story really hasn't changed from my view and from our view. The project still has 3 stories, which we think are towering very high. I've seen a couple of those units since the last time we met, and they're tall, and they stick out like a sore thumb. And I think if you try to force that into the current proposed property, it's a bad look, and it's not the feel that we've come to know from Farmington Hills.
Thank you. Next is Scott Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I'd like to second what Jeff Dawkins said as far as it really hasn't changed that much. I know that they've said they've moved some units, they've increased the setback. As a point of perspective of the distance they're talking and their height they're talking, walk out the door and you see the press box, that's what the closest neighbors are going to be seeing. So while they have improved it, it's still going to be quite noticeable for the neighbors. Something else I'd like to point out in regards to that site concept plan, it's still missing a couple branches of Pebble Creek. And where the added retention pond is along 12 Mile, that's very close to where it empties out, and we've had several incidents this year due to the rainfall where it's exceeded the actual 100-year flood I think I don't need to tell all you folks how bad it was. And if they do anything to mess up the bottom end where those two dump out, we're going to have 40 homes that are going to be underwater. So I just wanted to point those out, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. And the final blue slip I have is for Scott Griffin.
Hi, I'm Scott Griffin. I represent Hickory Oaks subdivision. I just want to say that we've heard the developer and we really appreciate how hard they've worked to modify the plan, reduce the density, and hear the concerns of the neighbors, the homeowners, and we're ready to fully support it. And obviously the developer I'm talking about is Pulte Homes, not Aptellis Healthcare, because
You mean Robertson?
no, Pulte, the previous proposal.
Oh.
Where they proposed 3 units per acre initially, and then reduced it to 2.5, and some of the neighbors and some of the council members still had a problem with that density. This proposal is 5 times that density, 5 times. This is 3 stories, 2 times as high as the other one. The other one is marketed to what we think is appropriate for this area, which is everything that's around us in Hickory Oaks and Wood Creek, the more mature residents. Here, they're clearly marketing to young singles, and we just, as the Pulte representative said, there's a huge market for the older residents in Farmington Hills. The other development talked about the community amenities and the open space, and you asked about those. Where would that be here? There's no open space whatsoever. The idea of doing urban style, 3-story, 1,200 square foot units with a mural wall on Inkster Road shows just how out of touch the developer is with the needs of this community. Pulte's units on 9 Mile are 1,700 square feet. I talked with them after their presentation. They said they would do 1,800 to 2,200 square foot units at this development, which is 50% larger than what's being proposed. And just to be clear, I think that Robertson Homes is a phenomenal developer and could do a phenomenal job with luxury ranch condos at this development. This is the wrong product for the right market. And if you look at all the Robertson developments, it's the right product in the right market. If you look at what I gave you at the last meeting, we did site plans, aerial photos for every one of their developments that use this urban concept, and they're all surrounded by retail, industrial, roads, highways. There are literally none that are surrounded by luxury homes like this is. They're talking about these units being brownstones. Seriously, 75% of the site is vinyl. A brownstone is brick by definition. The healthcare, last time it was 140 beds. This time he said,
you're near your 3 minutes.
He said, I think 120. Skilled care, long care, rehab. Now, tonight, for the first time, we heard wellness. Does that mean every time? And my last comment.
Be quick, you've hit your 3 minutes.
Real quick. The proposed density of this plan is obscene and selfish. I think you all know that, and we're looking for you to represent the citizens of Farmington Hills.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. I appreciate it, and thank you for the proponents who came forward with their project. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for those comments. Those are thought-provoking comments. And I'm going to mess up your name too. Lochran? Okay. So the last time this body heard this, there were a lot of questions. Most of us seemed comfortable with the south side of that development, with the extended care facility, the assisted care facility, and a lot of the focus was on the residential part. The last gentleman just mentioned high-end single-family homes. Was that completely dismissed?
The configuration, we've looked at it, obviously. I know that came up last time. I don't know if this is on.
we've looked at it, and the configuration of the site, the fact that it backs up to Inkster, which, for that type of housing would be a nuisance. The townhomes could front on Inkster and be fine with that, but backing up to a road like Inkster with, high quality residential homes, we feel that would be very difficult. We have communities actually with that exact same scenario. So that is a concern for us. That would downgrade it quite a bit. And again, just the way that it's configured with that, you see the retention pond in the corner. There's grade that we have to work around. It's very difficult to utilize it and get, really anything that would make sense economically with that type of product. And as I mentioned before, we've looked at several sites in Farmington Hills for that product. We think that product is something that would be a home run here. So it's just this site in particular, because of the configuration, because of the nuisance of Inkster Road, if you will, we did not feel that it made sense from a development standpoint. And again, it is quite I did not call them brownstones, and we don't have murals on them, and we did say that we realize the urban style is not conducive here. So we're willing to be flexible and work within the community as far as the aesthetics of it. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to if you as a body recognize that there is a need for this type of housing, that there really is not an option for that. That's what comes along with this. There has to be a set number of density. There has to be, that style of housing in order to meet that need. So it really comes down to what you want for your community in that respect. But to answer your question, laying it out, it does not lay out very well for single housing, detached housing.
And I'm going to recognize the fact that I have heard that this must be the 5th proposed project for this site since I've been on council.
Wow.
And every one of them falls through. This is the only one that actually seems to have some kind of structure to it, and I will commend both of you. Some of the amenities since the last time we saw the plan, seemed better. It did decrease, you decreased density by 12%, still not a lot, but you did decrease density, you did increase setbacks, and I will say that, I appreciate that, the explanation and the focus on making these owner-occupied and owned properties. That was a real big that was a real big issue for me and for many on council in our just discussions on that concept. So with that, I am going to move that the application for approval of PUD Plan 2, 2021, dated August 25, 2021 is granted. And further resolve that the city attorney prepare the appropriate PUD agreement which stipulates the final PUD approval conditions and authorizes the identified zoning deviations for city council consideration and final approval. And as part of those conditions, we need to see these amenities that have been put on this site plan and discussed, the correct setbacks, and to my colleagues, Councilwoman Knoll, Councilwoman Boulevard, the look and feel of this site. You haven't designed them yet. This is a historic site. That's one of the big problems with it. The look and feel needs to be taken into consideration here and ensure that there's some degree of uniformity there. To the citizens that are unhappy with this development, with the density, I certainly understand it. It has been wrestled with, as I said, I believe it's my 5th one of these, so it's very difficult. We understand that we're not going to get everything that would be perfectly ideal, and part of the problem is, and I would suggest you don't make your townhomes historic homes, because you'll never be able to change them, because that's part of the problem. We love our history. but those amenities need to be built into that PUD agreement, and if they're not, I'm certainly not going to support it when it comes back. But I will make that motion now. So, Madam Mayor, that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Well, I will second it for purposes of discussion.
Okay.
I actually have another question.
Okay, so it's been moved by Dr. Massey, seconded by Councilmember Knoll. Go ahead.
So, I mentioned earlier my concern about the look of the buildings. And I still have a problem with the 3 stories. I do appreciate you've reduced the density, but I have an issue with the 3 stories. And I'm pretty sure last time around, I mentioned condos would be more appropriate for the site. And I know you just mentioned that single family doesn't work on the site. I understand there is a lot of cost that has to go into the site because of the buildings that are currently on it. They have to be abated. There is a cost there, of course. There's also a cost to retaining the admin building and the 2 cottages. And so it does complicate that site with the grading issues and stormwater management and so forth. I understand that. So somehow, I'm looking for a way that we can make something work. Because I also know that, yeah, this is probably the 4th or 5th development that's been proposed. And we can't leave the site as is. It's becoming an eyesore. So, Mr. Massey just mentioned single family. I'm going to bring up condos again. And I'm also going to bring up the Commercial Rehabilitation Act. And I don't know how much due diligence has actually been put into that. I know you had some meetings with the city. We are not a core city. I understand that. But I'm pretty sure that we could still qualify for that. It requires that the site be no less than 3 acres, which we obviously meet. It also requires multifamily of only 5 units or more. I think if you did condos, obviously you're going to have more than 5 condos. The site may qualify. I can't sit up here and say it does, but I'd like to know how much was actually looked into that. I can't promise that the city would support that. It's a council decision. It's not a city administration. But if that's something we can research and the council is willing to consider that, that actually allows for a property abatement for up to 10 years for the developer. And the reason why I believe if that can work, it may be appropriate, is because the city does have an investment in this site. I mean, the former Sarah Fisher has been sitting there for years, vacated. We haven't seen any other developments come to fruition. And I don't want to see it sit vacant for another 20 years. So I want to find a way to make this work. And if it means a partnership with the city and the developer where you can receive some advantage from the city, and in return, you can do condos, 2-story condos, instead of 3 stories to reduce the height. I know that would probably still, you'd have to get your density, but at least if you can reduce to 2 stories, that may alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbors and my concerns, because I don't like the 3 stories either. I just think it's going to look like someone plopped it on the site. And sorry I'm using the word plopped, but it's kind of how I feel.
May I answer that?
I know you met with the city once already about this, but I just want to see if it's been truly investigated, not just the obsolete property rehabilitation, which I believe you may have to be a core, but the actual Commercial Rehabilitation Act.
May I answer the,
Yes,
the question? Yeah. So that's a great. You brought this suggestion up at the last meeting as well, and so promptly after that, we tried to explore in as good faith as possible every possible dollar that we could maybe bring to the development and help underwrite the cost of the challenges of the site that I don't want to list out because everybody knows them. We did have a meeting with Mr. MacGen and team, and Mr. Jopik was there and so forth, exploring an historic restoration grant or some infrastructure grant, because there's some infrastructure issues there as well. CRA, it was crossed off. I mean, we have a consultant that looked into it. We asked the city to confirm because the consultant didn't think we could get anything. And I mean, the gentlemen are right here. We can have them confirm unless some new information has emerged out of infrastructure bill or something like that. We're all ears. We'd love to, get some help from the city. I mean, this site could definitely use some help from the city.
Well, can someone tell me why the Commercial Rehabilitation Act, why that may not work?
Mr. MacGen?
Well, certainly, as Raj said, we did meet with them, and at that time, our economic development consultant was part of the meeting as well. I did have some conversations with her this evening, and I think your Councilwoman Val, I'm sorry. Are you alluding to an Oprah? Is that what you're?
Well, no, that's actually different, the Commercial Rehabilitation
Okay.
Act.
At this point,
But again, I don't know if the site qualifies.
I don't know either.
Criteria, but from my read of it, it may.
okay. Well, again, that's something that Raj is, the proponent's consultant could certainly look into. We vetted through multiple economic development drivers or vehicles to try to offset some costs on this project. Farmington Hills didn't qualify for many of them. Maybe Joe Valentine, our assistant city manager, can contribute to the conversation.
Yes, thank you. After the last meeting, we did go back, as Raj indicated, and we did look at the various programs that are available through the state. And the Commercial Rehabilitation Act is one of them that we did look at. We did revisit that with our consultant, and it was suggested that we revisit that with our city assessor to see the criteria that are outlined in the statute as to whether they would be applicable in this case. I don't have my notes with me this evening, but I do know that that discussion with the assessor concluded that this project would not meet those criteria, and therefore it was ruled out of our considerations.
Well, I'd like to then follow up and understand why.
We can get you that information. I just don't have it here this evening.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Bridges?
Yes, I'm going to not support the motion to move forward on this project. And I think the mayor pointed out clearly what the reasons that I support. One is out of character for the subdivision regarding Hickory Oaks, as well as the Wood Creek subdivision. The height of the project for the residential portion is too high. And and then also the issue regarding my concern about the market value of those residential properties being offered. I think that I was looking for a much more higher quality type of residential development there. So for those reasons, I'm not going to support the proposal. I appreciate Mr. Patel, your presentation. I think Mr. Loughran also as well. And Councilmember Knoll, as well as Councilmember Massey, is correct. We've seen this on this project have 3 to 4 different proposals come through. This is probably the one that came close, but still there are some issues in regards to the height that you're offering for the residential portion of the project, along with the impact on the, I'm concerned about the impact upon the market value of those properties, the residential properties as well, and particularly the Hickory Oaks property as well. So for those reasons, I'm not going to support the proposal to move forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? Would the proponents be willing to look at it again?
Truthfully, I can't answer. We have to,
You're on a two-lane road.
Yeah.
Unlike the other commercial areas that you're talking about, Inkster is a two-lane road with a very low speed limit. And that's on purpose, because it's a residential area. And it's not the commercial areas that you're used to building in this kind of product in other areas. You're emptying into a two-lane road that has no plans for being widened.
And there's condos on Orchard Lake that sell, which is a much busier road.
So I'm
Yeah,
giving you a chance.
I think it's more, I can't fully answer the question, except for I can say that we've been looking at this project in every different permutation. This is, of course, not the first time. We are understanding what you would like to see and what would be like a breeze to approve and so forth. There's a reason why that was not presented in our view because of economic reasons, and they are the same reasons why a project hasn't been built here despite the last PUD, because we can design the project down to get an approval, but the financial feasibility with the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that have to go into the preservation of these buildings that are mandated by the historic district, and of course we want to keep them, along with the abatement cost, with the site infrastructure, with almost zero help from any incentives. The math doesn't work. And so I really don't know that we can do this, because we would have done it already. We would have liked to have this approved the first time, like our projects happen oftentimes in most communities. This is a tough site, Madam Mayor. Respectfully, we've tried to highlight that multiple times over. This is a very, very tough site.
So you're saying no?
I'm saying it would be difficult.
I'm just
nothing's
asking you for a
impossible.
yes or no.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, is my answer.
The only response I have is, you have a practitioner here. We build these. We know the markets. We're willing to spend over $30 million in your community for a product that you don't have. To us, it seems like it's very logical. So I understand this is not my community. This is your community. It's your decision. From our standpoint, we would be very successful with this. We would move through it, and I think you would be very happy with the results and very proud of the results. Again, this is your community, but I think that this, considering where we have so much, I know you say it's a two-lane road. There's a lot of commercial along this corridor. There's commercial to the south. This is really a transitional piece. Single family on a major road next to
that commercial is
nursing.
all very low profile.
I'm sorry?
That commercial is all very low profile.
And this is not a high-rise type of use. This is attached single family. This is really the attainable type of housing that you have to have today, because we cannot build single family homes for less than $450,000. We can't fit detached condos on there because they're 70 feet deep. So just because of the configuration, if those historical buildings could be removed, we would have a lot more area to work with, and I think we probably could get a development that made sense economically. I know that's not on the table, so we're working with what we have to work with. We've got a lot of different angles to work with. We've got a lot of different externalities. Inkster Road, we're not going to back up to that. It's very difficult. So I think, I don't know what can go here. I don't think you're going to get single family homes. I don't think you're going to get enough detached condos to make it economically viable. It sounds like it's just going to sit there from what I'm understanding. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than you have a developer, a well-respected developer that's going to invest $30 million into your community.
Okay, thank you.
What about well, you mentioned detached condos. What about attached?
I've asked if they wanted to come back.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments before we have the vote?
Mayor, can we just confirm the motion that was made?
Yes.
Okay, so because there was a recommended motion, I wanted to make sure that part of the motion was approving the PUD plan dated August 25th, 2021. And, well,
No, Mr.
Mr.
Massey,
Massey had made the
Massey
motion.
There is a motion on the floor.
Okay.
And you added, after the last paragraph, you added as part of the conditions of the agreement, amenities and setbacks as discussed on the site plan this evening. And then you kind of went into the look and feel taken into, it's kind of all part of your motion. I'm trying to clarify what the actual motion is and what you want in it as the additional conditions.
So that, for clarity, the motion was that during the discussion on the PUD agreement, that the amenities that have been discussed or presented on the site plan actually make it into the PUD agreement. And one of those, in addition to the amenities that were discussed, is that the look and feel needs to be addressed so that it looks more consistent with the entire site development.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's the motion on the floor. It's been moved by Dr. Massey, seconded by Councilmember Knoll. This is a straight up vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it fails 6-1. Okay.
All right, motion to deny with that?
You don't need it, it's just
It's,
failed.
It didn't pass.
Okay, so your options are to think about coming back if you wish. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back within 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, Paul, are we ready? Welcome back. We've closed our break. We're back to item number 6, new business, consideration of approval of a planned unit development, 1/2020 agreement, Edward Rose Senior Assisted Living, located at 29000 11 Mile Road. This is for the Sarah Fisher site. Mr. Gardner.
Madam Mayor, members of council.
This is for the Sisters of Mercy site. Thank you.
Yes. On September 28, 2020, City Council approved a PUD plan, including a site plan for this property located on 29000 11 Mile Road. As a condition of that approval, a PUD agreement must be approved by City Council. The proponent and city, together with their attorneys, developed this PUD agreement that is before you, and have collaborated together and come to an agreement to come before you with this PUD agreement. I don't know what else to add other than we'd be happy to answer any questions. The city attorney is here also, and Edward Rose representatives are here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Mr. Jopik?
Yes, thank you. This is, City Council has seen quite a few PUD agreements in its time. Of course, this particular project, however, is rather unique because it is tied in, currently physically tied in with the City of Farmington Hills Caustic Center. The buildings right now connect, some of them do, and there's going to be demolition of some of the existing Sisters of Mercy buildings, and the facilities, the innards of the facilities, as I like to say, but city staff has looked at all of that and very carefully worked through a lot of issues on how to detach, more issues than I think anybody contemplated. And you might be thinking to yourself,
it was a real exciting read, yes.
yeah, well, you might be thinking it took a long time to get back to you, and I just wanted to explain that's why. We were dealing with a lot of issues that we had to work through and basically figure out how to separate and detach and then reattach, because some of the, like the entry drive will be a shared drive, and various other aspects of this will still continue to be shared even though we will be physically separated. So there are various ancillary documents that have been provided to you. I provided you with a memo that usually you just approve the PUD agreement, but in this instance, I have recommended that you actually make 2 motions, one to approve the PUD agreement and the second to approve those ancillary documents to enable city staff and my office to go forward with the proponents and putting these legal documents into place. Their purchase of the property from the Sisters of Mercy is also floating around this entire transaction, so that's in the mix as well. If you have any questions about any of these documents, I did try to describe them to you and give you summaries of them. I'd be happy to answer.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Is there somebody who wants to make a motion? Mr. Bridges?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Number one, motion to approve the authorize the city manager to execute the planned unit development agreement for Rose Senior Living PUD, planned unit development 1/2020, subject to and only upon a satisfaction of the conditions that the city receive documentary evidence satisfactory to the city attorney that Farmington Hills Senior Living LLC has closed on and is the fee simple owner of the property. Number two, motion to approve the following. Okay, first? Okay, wait.
One motion at a time, right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I sort of interrupted Mr. Bridges because it's more of a procedural thing. We have two motions.
Correct.
So we deal with the first motion that he
And then the
just made.
second motion,
So I'll
correct.
second that.
Okay.
The motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Bridges, seconded by Dr. Massey. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a straight-up vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It passes unanimously. Mr. Bridges?
Thank you. Motion number two, motion to approve the following ancillary related agreements and authorize the city manager to execute such documents at such time as the city manager and city attorney determine appropriate. A, reciprocal easement and maintenance agreement. Two, B, termination of amended and restated reciprocal easement and restriction agreement. C, option agreement for purchase of real property. D, lease agreement for chapel and Carlo room areas.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bridges, seconded by Dr. Massey. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that now fully passes, and we're on to item number 7. That was nice. Thank you. Thank you, Rose. We're very happy. Item number 7, consideration of approval of the First Amendment to the First Amendment and restated consent judgment for the vacant property located at 13 Mile Road and Inkster Road, CMR 9-21-89.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the City Council entered into a consent judgment with Robert Brody for a 7-acre parcel of property located at the corner of Inkster and 13 Mile Road. This judgment allowed for the construction of a 7-unit single-family residential development, which was never constructed. On June 26, 2017, the first amended and restated consent judgment was approved by City Council for the construction of 8 single-family homes for this development. Mr. Jim Clark, representing Robertson Brothers Homes, has submitted a proposal to amend the consent judgment for this property. The proposed amendment would modify the limits of disturbance between two homes, 6 and 7, within the development, and extend certain obligations of the city related to the extension of the public water main to service the homes in this development. The city attorney has reviewed the proposed amended consent judgment and presented you with their findings. Representatives from Robertson Brothers Homes are here. Mr. Jim Clark is here, and he can speak to the proposal. The residents within the general area were notified of this proposed amendment that council will be considering tonight.
Okay.
Jim Clark, Robertson Brothers Company, 6905 Telegraph Road, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I think Ed summarized what we're looking to do. The benefits, if you will, of the original consent judgment were modified to include the 8th unit. That amendment was, consent judgment was signed and entered. We did not start construction, and it had a sunset provision in it. So we have come back to the city to ask if we could re-extend the commitment on the city's part. The city agreed to at least initially investigate it, which is why we're here tonight. They have also put some additional financial collars on the agreement that make it more advantageous to the city, less advantageous to Robertson, but it's a prepayment of $20,000 worth of attorney's fees, a cap on your exposure of $600,000, a very short time frame for us to fully pay you off with 7% interest of January of 2023, and then an agreement to let us, we're still preserving the original consent judgment, 30-foot greenbelt buffer, no disturbance area. So that's never changed. There was a 70-foot buffer that we agreed with the neighbor to maintain, and we will maintain. We just need to do grading in it and then reestablish the landscaping in accordance with your tree ordinance. So I have talked to Mr. Nelson's attorney, Mark Rubenfire. Mr. Nelson did talk to Paul Robertson. He likes to do that. And then I did talk with Hank Morowski, who is head of the Homeowners Association. I provided him a summary similar to what I've done tonight. He said he did not see any issues with it, but he was meeting with his subdivision last week Thursday, told me he would tell me if they had issues with it. And then I reached out to the people. They have a name for everyone who lives north and northwestern. I don't know what they call them, but I reached out to that group and didn't get a meeting arranged after a couple of emails. So I think, unless there's neighbors here tonight, the neighborhood is in support of us building houses. What's changed since the last time was we did not feel there was, with the cost of the water main extension, it was not economically viable for us to proceed with the development. It is Mr. Brody's property, and we are partnering with him. We are his builder partner. We're not the owner of the land, we're the builder partner. The market has matured substantially. We are now building similar detached ranch-style houses on Lasser Road on a school property just south of Square Lake. The price of those homes started at $850,000. They are now selling for $1.2 million. That makes the economics of this viable. We will be building the exact same houses as we are building in Bloomfield Township on the 8 lots in Farmington Hills. If the council's pleasure is to grant us this second modification, but first modification of the first modification.
Have you looked at the Sarah Fisher site?
Yes, I'm the president of Robertson Brothers. I have all sorts of things I'd like to say and I won't.
Okay. Well, then I'm glad you were here to listen.
Yes.
That was good. So I'm assuming that this is for the water main, and then you're going to tie into the pressure sewer from Franklin.
Yes, and we did get the pressure sewer agreement did not have an expiration date on it. So I haven't talked to John Sterin, but I will, but it did not have an expiration.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Sure.
Any questions?
No, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I will make a motion that the City Council of Farmington Hill hereby approves the First Amendment to the first amended and restated consent judgment in the case of Robertson Franklin Hills LLC, successor to Robert Brody, versus City of Farmington Hills, Oakland County Circuit Court case number 080911704CZ, and authorize the city manager, city clerk, and city attorney to sign the First Amendment and take the necessary action to submit the First Amendment to the Oakland County Circuit Court for approval.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilmember Knowles, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Boulevard. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. This passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I said last time we'd get started, we will get started. So thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. That's, I grew up right on Scenic Lane in Franklin, so not far away.
Thank you.
That brings us to the second item, number 8 on our agenda, which is the appointments. Dr. Massey?
Madam Mayor, I would move for the appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate member, Mr. Asim Khan, for an unexpired term to end on 1 February 2023. And to the Emergency Preparedness Commission, Mr. John Shertell, for an unexpired term, also to end on 1 February 2023.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Massey, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Boulevard. Any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. That is, passes 7-0, and we will let these individuals know that they have been appointed as of this evening with a very nice letter. There were announcements that I was supposed to make earlier that I failed to, because this was buried in my papers. This is from the clerk's office. The clerk's office has mailed over 11,800 plus ballots to date. If you applied for a ballot but have not yet received one, please contact the city clerk's office at 247 there's an extra 7 in there. 248-871-2410 to make sure your application was received. You can also check that online if you wish. Registered voters can obtain an absentee ballot over the counter at the clerk's office through 4 p.m. on Monday, November 1st, 2021. Voter ID is requested, but if you do not have photo ID on you, you may complete an affidavit, and ballots will not be handed out to anyone but the voter who is making the application. Thank you very much. This concludes tonight's meeting. We need to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved to adjourn. It's been moved by Mr. Bridges, seconded by Dr. Massey. All in favor say aye. 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 This concludes tonight's meeting. Good night, Farmington Hills.